You're good to go. Everything is ready to go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 4th Cohasset Select Board meeting. Tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and on Cohasset's Facebook page. The public is also invited to participate on the Zoom platform, which can be accessed using the link provided at the top of the posted agenda for tonight's meeting. Please note that comments on Facebook and other social platforms will not be monitored. They will on the Zoom platform. The Zoom app can be loaded onto a smartphone, laptop, tablet, or other computer. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by the chair. Board members will be able to ask questions of any participant. All votes taken at this meeting will be by roll call. Members of the public who wish to ask questions are asked to utilize the question and answer feature on Zoom, including typing their name and address for the public record. The chair or vice chair will review the questions and direct them to the appropriate participants for a response. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143 TV. And I'd like to start off by taking a roll call, beginning with doing Alpha again, beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton here.
Corey Evans here.
Diane Kennedy here.
Paul Schubert here.
Carrie Thompson here.
Okay, we're all here. And if anybody would like to join us in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is opening for public comment. Please know that public comment, in general, we can't respond to it since there typically matters not on the agenda. And looks like we have a question, Carrie. I don't know if it's for public comment or if it's for later in.
Nope, it's just Katie Dugan saying she's ready when we need her.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I do know that there probably are a lot of questions from the public, and I think that during our community update from our emergency management team, we'll probably get some of those answered. So I'm going to turn that over to whoever's first from emergency management. Chris or Chief.
Okay, they should be, they're all on. They should be just jumping up into the screen now. There we go.
There they are. Welcome, everybody. So who's first? Who's on first?
Well, that's a good question. So that being a good question, I'll just kick off real quick about a quick update on where we stand with phase 3, part 1. Obviously, as of last Saturday, there are new travel restrictions and guidelines. They're not even guidelines. They're regulations that were brought down by the governor. Through HR, they've been distributed to all town staff, so all town staff are aware of them. But if everybody isn't aware, obviously, if you leave what we're going to call the bubble, and the bubble got smaller today, so if you leave Massachusetts and go any place other than New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, New York or New Jersey or Hawaii, when you come back, you need to be quarantined for 14 days, or you need to go out and get a PCR test, COVID test that has to come back negative. So unfortunately for the PCRs right now, because they go out to the lab, some of these are taking 6 to 10 days to get your results back. So what we've told town staff is just to plan accordingly. If you go out for in quotes, pleasure, then when you come back, just plan accordingly that you're going to have to use your own personal time or sick leave or whatever the case may be, because you can't come back to work. So that's kind of the update on phase 3, part 1. The only other thing I would mention is obviously the governor was on TV today. Unfortunately, things are starting to tick in the wrong direction. That being said, he kind of alluded to the fact that, we can take a step backward at any time. So, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a moment. And all I'm going to say is I want to remind everybody that it was through a lot of hard work and pain and suffering when we were all locked down that got us to the position that we are. The Commonwealth is doing a good job. The town of Cohasset's doing a great job, but it's only going to take one cluster to erupt in the town of Cohasset for this to change. So people need to be reminded that the virus didn't go away, and having big parties and social gatherings where people aren't wearing masks and are not socially distanced is not okay. You'll blow it up. You know, if you want to be that selfish and you want to blow it up for the rest of the town, then that's what's going to happen. And we had some parties that led to certain things happening in town. And we were also, Mary and Pam are also working with public health in regards to an individual that came from out of state and tested positive while he was here. And he was at numerous parties with 30 and 40-year-olds over the weekend before last, and then he disappeared back to North Carolina. So as I said, all it's going to take is one of those to turn this thing around, especially in a small town like ours. So now I'll get off my soapbox, Madam Chairperson, and I don't know if Pam wants to pick up from here or Lieutenant Lennon, but one of them, or Glenn, one of them can jump on from here.
Thank you, Chief. Go ahead, Pam.
I can just kind of pick up too. So we were on a call today. We have calls 2 times a week with DPH, Mary and I, on Tuesdays and Fridays. And today, Dr. Katie Brown, who is our state epidemiologist, did talk about the fact that case numbers are starting to rise, and they are keeping an eye on it. They knew when they got to phase 3, step 1, they would see increases. They knew it because basically you're allowing people to have greater interaction, greater numbers into restaurants, for example, and stuff. So they knew they were going to see an uptake. And so now they're trying to figure out, are these numbers a new baseline that we're going to see for phase 3, or is this the beginning of a significant increase, in which case they might have to step back, which would be terrible. You know, all these poor gym owners and small business owners, it took forever to open up. You'd hate to ever see them get shut back down again. And then of course, the biggest thing is we're trying to get schools open in September. And the last thing you want is like rising case numbers, you know, when September rolls around. So again, the state is emphasizing no large gatherings, which, you know, was one of the reasons that kind of led to the cancellation of graduation, where it was going to bring together upwards of 600 people. And if you had 100 graduates and each one was going to be allowed to have 6 family members, I mean, you're talking like over 600 people. So that kind of went into the thought process of canceling graduation. So, I mean, that was really unfortunate. But that was a decision that was made not just by the school department, but, you know, kind of the whole town emergency management group together. And then the only other really important thing too that came out of the call today with DPH is that this is August 4th. August is the really big month for Triple E, and we really have to be careful. I mean, I know everybody's like so sick of COVID, but you know, they had their first case yesterday in the town of Carver. Carver Middleborough is a real pocket right now of they're finding mosquitoes with Triple E. So it's that whole southeastern Mass. If you're headed down there in that area, you got to be extra careful. But even around here, once it's dusk and the sun starts to go down, like this time of night, the mosquitoes are coming out. You're going to really be careful and cover up and wear bug spray or just stay inside. So month of August, take it easy.
I think we all need to live in bubbles for a little bit. Just in terms of, I've had a lot of questions about crowd size and, you know, what is too much, you know, and I know what the state guidelines are. I believe it's gatherings up to 100 as long as they're socially distant and you know, so, you know, people, I know there were parties in town and one could argue that they were big or not big. And then obviously, you know, you look at the beach and the spit on the weekends where there are lots and lots of people
Right.
and controlled. So, you know, it's just a real gray area. I don't know that there's really any answer to it. But I know it's just confounding a lot of people. And I think the baseline message is, you know, just try to stay within your small social group and let this ride out.
As best you can. I mean, I know everybody's getting fatigue of trying to be socially distant, but it's like we just can't let our guard down. You know, like I was saying earlier, I mean, the last thing you want is to see any kind of businesses shut down. I mean, people are just kind of hanging on as it is, and gotta keep trying to do our best.
And I'll just add that obviously what they've asked of businesses and so forth as far as what they're allowing was up to groups outside up to 100. Now, that's obviously for businesses and for caterers or whatever the case may be, but it's also a best practice for if you're going to have an event. And you have to really remember, the biggest thing you have to remember is wear a face covering whenever you cannot be socially distanced from others. So that is really the message that we keep trying to hammer home, that we have the ability, we're in charge of our own ship right now, and we get to be those folks. So we really, really try to hammer that message home, that face coverings, and when you can't be, face coverings whenever you're within 6 feet of somebody, and to try and be socially distanced. It's, you can be social at 6 feet. It's not that hard. So if you want to have a few friends or whatever over to your backyard, remember outdoors is always better than indoors. Outdoors, just keep your distance. And I've seen a lot of that. So I think that's the message.
Great, thank you. Lieutenant Lennon, or sorry, Paul, question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment. We've seen an uptick in the hospital as well, but as somebody who did contact tracing for a pertussis outbreak a few years back, it's exceedingly important. If you have a photo, for example, on Facebook, and you've got a photo of Facebook, and there's all the people at a given location, it is far easier to do contact tracing when there's a photo as opposed to having people remember who was there. So when people go on Facebook and post, and then they eliminate the photo, the contact tracing ability drops dramatically. So should you have a party and it's too big and it's too close and it's not socially distanced, don't make it any harder for the people that are trying to track and find out and trace those who were there, even if they're not even infected. It is so much easier with a photo. That's all.
Great. Any other board questions before we move on to another public safety person? So either Glenn, do you want to take over?
Sure, I would just start off with a couple of nuts and bolts things. I think that the operation of Sandy Beach, which has been a very heavy lift this summer, is working as well as expected. The Sandy Beach Association has really stepped up. A lot of methodical programs have been put in place there, a lot of effort and a lot of hours to make it work. The data that we're collecting from the parking lot is very surprising to me, how many cars come and go from the place in the hours it's open. So I think that's working very well. On a more general thing, we have accomplished all the goals we had set to acquire PPE for the school reopening plan. When we first got the list of what they needed, it was a very tall order. But we, as of today, we have everything they need in hand, which is
Terrific.
comforting. And we also have a very good supply of PPE for general town government and municipal use. So we've been lucky that way. Hard work, but we've got it done. The other thing that's on a more of a broader scale is that MEMA, Mass Emergency Management Agency, is now taking a look at what's going to happen in hurricane season, which is happening as we speak. Lots going on because a lot of the regional plans that we had in place for sheltering people are not going to work now because of the distancing and the school districts just saying flat out, not in our building. So lots of work going on in the region about that also. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Glenn? Okay, Lieutenant Lennon, you're next.
Hi, I don't have much to add other than we were just informed yesterday that the department received a grant to outfit the Zoom trailer that we have at the police station from the state, as well as a new mobile signboard that was also applied for through the grant. So we learned about that yesterday, but I have nothing further to add other than that.
Great. Any board members with a question? Everybody good? I have one question, Lieutenant Lennon, just because I had a couple of resident phone calls today, in fact, about the spit and whether we, we patrol that. And I know we've heard it a million times, but if you could address sort of what the plan is in terms of enforcement when that gets too crowded.
Sure. So we have been coordinating with the Harbor Master's office from the beginning of the summer, and also with the environmental police, who have been sending a couple of their different patrol boats down to assist us with patrolling the spit and other areas of concern. So we've been out there, weather permitting. We've been out there every weekend since the beginning of the summer, and we plan to do so again this weekend. But primarily, we're enforcing safety violations in boats and whatnot. But other things as they arise. But we've made a commitment to it for the season, and we will continue to be out there patrolling it almost as an additional sector in town. We divide the town by sectors, but with the amount of traffic and everything that's out there, boat traffic and so forth, it's basically become an additional sector for us at this point. So,
yeah, no surprise there. Any questions from the board? Chris, did you want to just address the school drop-off that we received a lot of emails about?
Yeah, if I could have, I'll just have Greg and Chief Sylvia jump in too. I think Glenn too has been involved in the conversation. So the schools are exploring all, obviously they're critically focused on getting kids back to school. And one of the things that they've partnered with us on is getting safely. They're going to have to change not only bus routes, but how many kids they pick up and where they do. And because they've also changed school start times, it's changing how people are going to come and go. So one of the things that they've asked to look is access to the old pasture access way to the Osgood School. And again, I just want to underscore that this is something that they've asked us to look at. It's not been approved, but it's something that's being explored. And I know there's a public safety meeting later in the week with the schools. They're going to be walking the site. And obviously, if anything does come to this further, there'll be a lot of communication with the neighbors, and obviously maintaining the safety of kids getting to school, whether it's in cars or in bikes or on foot, is most certainly critical. So obviously, we're going to have to take that. So I don't know if there's anything any of you want to add to that.
Just a very, very quick note that this was a draft plan, and somehow the word got out that this had been approved by everybody, and that is in fact not the case. This is public safety, being police and fire, as well as DPW and school reps. We're going to walk the whole site. We're trying to figure out exactly how we're going to get all these kids to school, and I mean all the kids to school as safely as possible. And obviously, Deer Hill and Osgood being on top of each other are a little bit of an issue, especially when the bus capacity is dropped from 72 to 24. So how do you manage that piece of the puzzle? So that's why I say this is strictly a draft thing. Before anything is approved, everybody will get a chance to weigh in. And again, it's going to be a community effort from all of us so that we can do this and do this safely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That's pretty much what there is to say at this point.
Okay. All right, everybody good?
No.
Jack, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we get the neighbors involved sooner rather than later. My inbox is full of people who are very upset. So I think we need to hear from them as day one impact, not telling them later on or bringing them after decisions have made. I think that they're living up there. They know the traffic patterns. They know the dangers. Very narrow road up there. So I would suggest that we get the neighbors involved sooner rather than later. I think it'll save a lot of problems down the line. So that's my suggestion.
Agreed. Okay, great.
I'll make sure I carry that message when we go to our meeting. And again, I really want to emphasize that a lot of people had this in their mind that this had been approved. This was strictly something that the superintendent floated as an idea, as something we might be able to do, and that's where it stands. But like everything else, it grew legs on its own, and everybody got very, as yours was, Jack, my inbox was also inundated.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, again, I can't stress it any more than that. This was a draft thought process. That's all it is, stands right now. And I will carry that message, and we will make sure that we get all the neighbors up in that neighborhood. That's my old neighborhood.
I know.
We'll make sure that we get them all involved.
Well, I think the trial balloon kind of went over like the proverbial lead balloon. So, but let's move forward. Let's have some open meetings and bring the neighbors in and hear what they have to say.
Correct. And we have a month. We have a month, almost a month and a half before we have to worry about this. So a little over a month to work on all of these things. And this is one of the moving parts that the superintendent is trying to put into place. He's obviously, he and his team are incredibly busy trying to figure this all out.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out.
Good deal.
Great. Thank you. Unless there's anything else from a select board member, I think we will move on our agenda. Thank you all again. We can't say it enough. Thank you for all your hard work during these very difficult times. We really appreciate it.
Highly welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Chris, on the September 1st state warrant, state primary warrant, is there any vote that we need to take, or is this just an administrative signing?
Yeah, I think it's just administrative signing, but I guess just because it's on the agenda tonight, there's nothing wrong with just voting it.
Okay.
And then what has to happen is that all of you need to sign it. So if you can possibly either swing by town hall next day or two, Carol will have a copy in her office, so you could just either knock on the door or give a call over. Or if you need an alternative, if someone, for whatever reason you can't get over here, let us know and we'll try to swing it by your house. But Carol needs to have it, if at all possible, by Thursday, the end of the day Thursday, so she can get the constable to make copies and get it posted pursuant to the requirements.
Right. And this is just a legal requirement before elections that we basically post a copy of the ballot. So this would be for the September 1st primary. Would anybody like to make a motion? Come on, I can't.
Is the language just to approve it, Diane?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, just to sign it. Yep.
So I move that we approve and sign the September 1st state primary ballot.
Is there a second? Paul, I didn't hear you, Paul.
Second.
Okay, there you go. We're going to do a roll call vote beginning with Jack.
Yeah. There we go. Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay, great. I almost voted for you, Carrie. That wouldn't have been good. So just again, as Chris said, if you can get here by Thursday, get in touch with Carol in the town clerk's office to arrange a time to sign it. If you're having any problems and you want it to be brought to you, just let Tracy know, okay?
Is it
Great.
possible to leave it on the front entryway of town hall?
Yeah, if you gotta have some idea, if you gotta come by, Carol, leave it out there, so that's fine.
Yeah,
I would-
I'm working straight the next 2 days, so if it's just sitting there, I can drive by.
Okay, so anytime after tomorrow, then we'll leave it out for you and we'll leave it in the lobby. That's another, we can also just leave it in the lobby if it's easier, so.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. We'll clarify that if we need to. Next on the agenda is an acceptance of gift from the Cohasset Youth Baseball and Softball Association. It's a gift of basically paying a bill to do some work at the Beechwood ball fields. Chris, is there anybody from CYSBA that was planning to be here?
I don't know that there is. If one of the folks in the audience is, they want to either raise their hand or comment using the Q&A, we can leap them up. There's only one set of initials that I don't recognize.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't see it. I don't know if they plan. We have the presentation. If you want me to show it quickly, let me know.
Yeah, if you could show the presentation, just so that the public sees what we're talking about.
And how much money the gift is.
Do you want me to quickly read through it, Chris, or do you
Yeah, sorry,
want to
I
summarize?
was, I couldn't find myself to unmute myself. The whole screen hit on me. Yeah,
Okay.
so basically this is the Cohasset Youth Baseball and Softball Association. And this is just a quick summary of what they do. What they're planning to do here is really here. So they're gonna donate what amounts to $9,723 worth of upgrades to the Beechwood playing surface, which I'll show in the following updates. It's pretty much the mound and the base paths. And it's a company named DHT Golf, which I guess also does. And there's a time, so this company's all queued up. They've done work before for them, and they're ready to go with it. The quote is, you see, it's for stripping turf at the outfield. They do a little bit of work on the outfield transitions, a little bit of new sod installation, and then the key, I think, is the pitcher's mound and the bases to make sure that everything's clean. If you look at, it's got a little fuzzy, as you can see in this picture, right? It hasn't been used a lot lately, so it's a little fuzzier than you would normally see it, right? That's the pitcher's mound over here, right? It's a little shaggy, right? And the base paths look a little shaggy too. So it's going to make it, it's going to clean up, the plan for this is to clean up the field. So, and again, as it showed here, it's $9,723, and they'll pay for it directly. And then this is just a request to accept the gift and to have allow that work to be done. And again, they'll be working with, under the direction, oversight of our public works crews too, to make sure everything is good.
Is there any questions from board members? Corey?
Just to be clear, Chris, you said that this is the gift is not the funds, it is the actual work, and therefore we don't have to be involved in the bidding process or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a below a threshold anyway, Corey. It's less than $10,000, so this would be just best business practices. And I've asked to loop this back with Michelle to make sure we have it all documented. But this is a specialty company, and again, because the work falls below that threshold, it should be good to go.
And secondly, I mean, any story about how the field got to that condition? I mean, it's pretty bad. So, what kind of precipitated this?
I just think they've historically helped with the upgrades, and again, it hasn't been used a lot lately. The town doesn't have a team that does this kind of work. I mean, our guys mow grass and stuff like that, but they're not field maintenance people in the sense of like a groundskeeping crew. That's not what they're trained to do. So and again, and the other thing is, as you see at Barnes, the lily fields that's used all the time. And the parents are much more engaged. This is not used as much. This is more of a community field and people play softball on it. But they're looking to be a little more active for the rest of the summer. So they really need this extra field. So again, I don't think it's been upgraded in probably a couple of years from the looks of it. So, but it's be good. So it should stay for a little while this way, and we'll do our best to see if we can't keep it as maintained as possible. Again, we don't have clay, use special clay and stuff like that. We don't keep that kind of stuff in stock. So it's a nice donation.
Any other board comments, questions? Just Chris, I think we talked about this maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, but and I don't know if it's something that can fall under open space and rec, but at some point, I think the town should take an assessment of sports fields and put together an upkeep schedule, and so that this is sort of an anomaly, and it's a relatively small project, but as we know, the tennis courts have been in disrepair, and then we went to town meeting, but I would love to see us get some kind of comprehensive field maintenance schedule together. And there's a lot of different stakeholders. There's Cohasset Youth Softball, baseball, there's the soccer boosters, there's the schools, there's the town, but it's all town land, so ultimately it all has to funnel through us, and whether it's us or the rec commission, oversight, but I think it's something we should kind of tee up a conversation for.
So just to follow, so the town has done that. So Public Works does have a field maintenance schedule now for all the basic, for all the big fields. And the biggest maintains really Milliken, right? So they do a regular, fertilizer and upkeep on the big fields, and even at Beechwood, and they manage, they check out the basketball court. So we have now a rotating. They've been assessed to the point now we're putting things into regular capital planning. Some of the things that had historically not been done that like that, as you point out, Diane, the tennis courts, they're being rolled now into that review. Yep. This is just that, the town doesn't really run baseball leagues. So this is more of a community field than a full scale competitive class baseball field. So it's good that we get it back up to speed. But it is, I'd say, used 90+% of the time by the immediate community.
Yeah.
But when it needs to get up to league standards, it needs to get to higher levels. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be better if we open a regular schedule with them.
Yeah.
We can work that out.
And just understand which fields are maintained by whom and when and what the long-term plan is. And I believe that it was covered in open space and rec, and it's probably just a matter of us getting updated at some point and figuring out if there's some next steps. So I'll add that to the list. Carrie?
Real quick, Katie Dugan is weighing in saying that she believes the assessment of fields was done as part of open space and rec plan.
Yeah, I believe that's the case as well. Would anybody like to, if you don't have any other questions, like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the gift from the Cohasset Youth Baseball and Softball Association for the sum of $9,723 for the purpose of the refurbishing of the Beechwood ball field.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Stewart, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay, that's exciting. They can move forward with that project. Thank you all very much.
And thank you to the the generous donation of that project.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's really phenomenal.
It takes a village. Okay, so we have a number of license permits and events. I think it's probably worth noting in some of these, just being very particular, we did say we weren't going to, address large scale community events. So with that in mind, we did say there are many things that we want to continue as best we can within the confines of it being socially distant, et cetera. So we'll consider that as we go through these. And the first one is the Safe Harbor Vigil. And I think Nicole is with us. So if you want to show yourself, Nicole. And I don't think I can unmute you.
No, I just have Pam up here. There she is. I see her voice is open. Are you there, Nicole?
I am here. I apologize. I am with the power. You hear me?
We can hear you a little bit. You're going in and out.
Let me try one other thing here. I'm in Norwell with no power.
Oh, there you go.
Let's see.
I
apologize. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. You're a little broken up, so we'll just try to, if you could just roll through the very top level details, and then we'll hopefully get enough information, and we have your application as well.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
It's an imperfect system.
So if you are, I apologize. This is not like me. So on behalf of Safe Harbor, I am just asking for permission and the permit to host our International Overdose Awareness Vigil. August 31st. We expect about 30 attendees, as we've had in the past, 30 to 40 attendees. And I have developed a safety plan in regards to COVID and social distancing that was approved by Pam. I'm not sure if that was sent over to you all, and if hopefully you heard all of that.
We heard it well, Nicole, thank you. And we
Beautiful.
have the application in front of us as well. Do you want to, I'll just turn it over to the board now. You did a great job. Thank you. We know you're usually an A+ student and you're just getting an A instead.
Oh,
Any
Then-
questions from the board? Paul?
Is there a rain date?
there's no rain date. We typically, so August 31st is the international date for this. We typically have a rain location, but we are just expecting to do it August 31st from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And unfortunately, if it rains or if it's storming, it will just be canceled.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, I gotta unmute myself. Corey?
Yeah, I think, one thing that I've heard a lot about, or I've heard a lot of people saying is, why are certain events approved and not? And I think this is a really good example of an event that at its core is about, our community and one of the vital things that we need to do. So even in the context of what's going on, I'm really happy to see that this event's going to keep going. So thanks for all your work on this.
Very nicely said.
Thank you, Corey.
Okay. Any other comments?
Happy to make a motion if we feel ready.
Go for it.
I move that we approve the International Overdose Awareness Day Safe Harbor Vigil to be held on Monday, August 31st, 2020 from 6:45 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the town commons.
Is there a second? Okay. Roll call vote, Jack? Roll call vote, Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Great. Thank you very much. Nicole, we will see you then, if not sooner. Be well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
your patience.
Stay cool.
You as well.
The next item is the Interfaith Social Services, who is proposing a one-day liquor license for a farm-to-table dinner at Holly Hill on August 6th, which is just a couple days away, from 6 to 9 p.m. Chris, do we have any more information about that?
Other than what's in the packet, I don't have.
It's really just the one-day liquor license application for a
So
Holly
Pam's,
Hill
I guess
fundraising.
Pam is
Thank you.
up here to, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were gonna have somebody here as a representative, but they did submit a plan. And to support what Corey was saying previously, one of the main things that all these events have in common is that they do submit plans and they're following certain guidance documents. And in this case, these guys did follow the event guidance. And I did see that, they're sitting outside. There's no more than 6 people per table. The tables are separated by 6 feet. Food will be served, etc., things like that. So they have a specific plan that will meet COVID lines, and a fundraiser as well. Any event that's explicitly prohibited, even if you had a plan, we wouldn't allow, like a parade or any kind of street festival or something. So these are allowed under phase 3, and they do. And this plan was fine, and I approved it, made a few comments, and it's incorporated, and they're all set.
Okay. Paul?
So will there be a list of the attendees in case, for example, you need to contact trace?
Yes, exactly. That is one of the requirements. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. Corey?
And I see this, you said, and it's in the packet, it's limited to 20. Does that include servers? Does that include staff? What does 20 mean in that?
It was spelled out. Honestly, I kind of forget because I've looked at a lot of plans since then. I think it was 18 attendees, and I think it's 2 servers. So I think there's 3 tables of 6.
Okay. Yeah, I just worry, if there's 20 people and then there's, 5, you get to 30 pretty quickly. So I just don't want to, have 2 numbers flying around.
It
30
looks like
becomes 90.
Yeah, it looks like the attendees are 30 total, and 8 of those will be event or staff volunteers.
Okay.
Should
Great.
we have them, update their submission for that to reflect that there'll be 30 people, not 20?
That's just in the packet.
Apologies, I missed it.
I think the top page, which is the application form for the license, does say 20. So I think in the motion, we should just say for a total of 30 participants, just so we're clear and we have a vote that's clear. Okay.
I take that back. That's the safe harbor. Sorry, that
Oh.
is.
Yeah, I couldn't find
That is-
30 either, so.
It says the number of
Go ahead.
participants on here. is
20.
20 on their
Right.
packet application.
Right, I didn't print the other pages, so, which we may not have gotten, actually. So, all right, but Pam, you reviewed everything and you feel comfortable with this.
I did. I had the guidance out in front of me, and I was
Okay.
going back and forth between the plan and the guidance, and they
Okay.
met everything. And
Okay. All right, and the participants applied for is 20, so that's what we're doing it off this application front page. Okay, any questions or a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the Interfaith Social Services Charity Dinner to be held at Holly Hill Farm as a farm-to-table dinner event with 20 participants to be held this week, August 6th, 2020, from 6 to 9 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Ray Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Thank you. Just a comment on this. In this and just in general, especially with liquor licenses, and I know this is just a one-day license, but we should get it a couple days, more than a couple days ahead of time. Certainly, there are times that we're not meeting, and we may have something for the end of August and we're not meeting until August 25th, but, we've been pretty consistently meeting for the last few weeks. So I would appreciate just giving some consideration when people send in these applications that we really should have a little more advance notice. And on that, one of the things we talked about, and I can't remember whether it was a month ago or 3 months ago, is re-looking at our liquor regulations, and Chris also maybe considering doing an ABCC training like we did a few years ago. I think it's really helpful, and I think that's probably something we should spend some time making sure we're not only up to date on the regulations, but that the regulations are up to date with the course of business in town at this point. So I have that on my laundry list, but keep me honest on that. I would like to look at that.
But it's on our list too.
Good. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Without further ado, I want to try to keep us on track, just in case there's another windstorm. The request for an outdoor yoga on the Common from Balance Studio, they did not submit their plans at this point, so we're going to table that discussion. And the next one is the sidewalk sale for the Cohasset Chamber of Commerce from August 13th through 16th, 2020. And I think it's another one of these, Pam, that if you can confirm that you have reviewed plans or that there's anything in particular we should be taking into consideration as we discuss this.
well, for this one, there was no specific plan submitted, but it actually is beneficial to do things outside. Just like in general, it's better to have people out on the sidewalk than inside the
store.
stores. So it's more of kind of just a common sense one.
Okay. Anybody have any questions based on the letter we got from the Chamber of Commerce? Corey?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that was apparently different this year than the previous years is that they're not requesting to block any of the sidewalk space, and that kind of caught me as concerning because on any given Saturday or Sunday, it's pretty hard for people to pass each other on the sidewalk and keep distance. So even though we're outside, so we're going to be adding to that, outdoor clothing racks or outdoor product showcases. We don't have very wide sidewalks in town. So I'm just wondering about that part, if it would be better served by blocking off some space, that way people can get around without running into each other.
We can consider certainly in, just looking at these dates, kind of from a practical standpoint where, you know, the juggernauts might be, and if we wanted to ask them to, you know, we could approve conditionally and just ask them to send us, you know, just some general sense of where sidewalks might be blocked, especially like if you think about, and there's not a retail place, I don't think, to the right of 5 South Main, for example. But 5 South Main has tables and, you know, and then they're taking up some parking spaces so for dining. So if there were tables right there, and again, I don't think there's a retail shop unless I think it's another few blocks, a few buildings down, that could become sort of a cluster there. So any thoughts?
Yeah, Pam or Chief Sylvia, I mean, is that something that's worth being concerned about, or are you comfortable with having people, you know, pretty close to each other, pass each other in town on the sidewalk?
Well, I guess I would weigh in very, very quickly and say this is, again, when this was brought to us by the chamber, the thought process was like everything else we're trying to get people to realize is, I agree with Pam, getting people outdoors instead of indoors is a good thing. But if they're going to be outdoors and they're going to be within 6 feet of each other, they need to have face coverings in some way, shape, or form. So it's not that this isn't doable. It's just, again, we rely on people to do the right thing. And we know that you're absolutely right, Corey, that if you put a rack out on the sidewalk in front, opposite Seabird at any one of the shops that's there, the sidewalk is not that wide. So it is going to create a little bit of a to use Diane's word, cluster. And we haven't really seen, I don't know, we've seen an actual plan of what they wanted to do. They just brought it up as a concept on what they wanted to do. And that's why it was brought to the board for the board to just chew on, so we could go back to them and at least give them some thought process in regards to, you know, what type of limitations we would put on this.
I mean,
I think
outside
that's
in already has the outside racks. I don't know if they're out, but and I don't know what permitting they have, but you know, you've got Darylyn's. I mean, we don't really have a lot of retail shops. So I'd like to hear more about what shops are going to take advantage of this and what format. You know, we can't have this be a street fair. But at the same time, I don't want to prevent people from, you know, again, like what Outside In does, just putting a rack of stuff outside. That's, you know, doesn't seem to be.
Chris?
Yeah, so when Larry talked to me about this, I told him that I understood what they were trying to do, and, you know, outside is great, and we've let the restaurants do things outside. The challenge is the board's not meeting until the 25th, so if they want to do this in August, they have to get it to us right away. So I do think it's appropriate to kind of caveat this by saying that approval is conditioned on the sign off by the Director of Health, Public Health, or something like that. They understand, and I don't think, from my conversation with Larry, that this was any more than, you know, putting out some racks or some tables in front of the stores. You know, this is not a street festival, right? It's just sort of a sidewalk sale, and it's designed, I think, to bring some of those wares out so people can pass them and see them and buy them. And because I think there's a fair amount of stuff that, you know, that people normally have seen and wandered in the shops that they haven't been able to do. And again, it's one of those kind of time that, you know, we're kind of improvising as we go, right? To help out the business community. And I said, well, we normally don't permit, you know, if you just put a little rack out in front of your store and it's not blocking anybody. I said, in this case, because of the sensitivity of the health situation, that it was important to run this by the board to get some feedback. So again, I think it would be, you know, if the board's comfortable to caveat any or condition any approval on a sign off by you know, by the health director on a proposed plan, and then we'll circulate it back to all of you. I mean, again, they can't block the sidewalks, right? They cannot close in any streets. This is literally just putting all that they're seeking, and quite frankly, all that I think we'd be comfortable with. We would be having people put maybe a table or two in front of their store that's not blocking you, right up against the wall, a rack out like Outside In does, as an effort to help, you know, spur, you know, and help out some of these small businesses that have really been struggling.
Okay, Jack had his hand up, and then I'll get to you, Kerry.
Yeah, I think the answer to this is very simple. We approve this subject to approval of Public Health Director in conjunction with Chief Sylvia. Simple, I think we all agree. It's a simple solution, and I think we should make the motion and pass it.
Carrie?
I agree with Jack. I think we need to let these retail owners be able to sell some of their stuff. And I also see that this needs to happen fairly quickly because we only have so many more months of nice weather to be able to do this. So I do see how it needs to happen sooner rather than later. But as long as they know they can't be completely blocking sidewalk traffic, I trust our local business owners to do it tastefully.
I think just because we are asking any other business to, put a plan together, that they just, I do think the motion should be conditioned on them getting sign off from Pam and Chief Sylvia. if that
Absolutely.
works. So
I'm ready to make the motion.
go for it.
Okay, I move that we allow the sidewalk fair to proceed subject to approval of Public Health Director in conjunction with Chief Sylvia.
Could I ask you, Jack, just to venture, just to amend your motion to say the sidewalk sale?
Sidewalk sale, so amended.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay. A roll call vote beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay, we are all set. Thank you. And thanks again, Pam and Chief Sylvia, for shouldering all of this. Chris, did you want to say something?
No, I was just waving thank you to both of them.
Oh, wave.
No.
Is that
Sorry,
a hand?
I was not raising that hand.
I'm trying really hard to stay on top of the hands.
The only thing I'll say is, again, this is the kind of partnership we're trying to work with our local business owners to try to help them through this tough time. And we wish them every success. So if people are in town, they're not going to make a big deal of this. It's going to be just kind of spread, through their regular social circles. It's not going to be big banners or anything like that. So again, I believe they're looking to do it not this weekend, but the following weekend, and there'll be more up on Facebook pages and stuff. So
great. Okay. The next on the agenda, and I think it probably makes more sense to do what we have listed at 8:15, which is working group structure for master plan implementation committee priorities, because the other two items, the Affordable Housing Steering Committee and the Master Plan Implementation Committee updated charge and structure, is actually kind of a subset of the Master Plan Implementation Committee priorities and the recommendations that they're going to make, which we got summarized in an executive summary. So Paul, you're our changing the agenda around person. Are you comfortable making an agenda?
So I make a recommendation. We move the Affordable Housing Steering Committee and Master Plan Implementation Committee to a later time period and move forward the fiscal year 21 goals and objectives to present time.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, roll call vote on that. Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey?
I'm just reviewing. So we're effectively moving FY21 goals and objectives up 20 some odd minutes.
Yes. Only because that's sort of the umbrella topic that results in the next two agenda items.
All right, thank you. Then Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay. And with that, I'm going to recognize Katie Dugan, who's been moved up as a panelist. Just to summarize the executive summary, there's a lot of other information that we got in our packets that, if we have any questions, we can do that. But
if we want to show this at any point, Katie, let me know. I have it up.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Well, why don't you show the executive summary, and then we'll kind of work with that. So thank you. As all of you know, the Master Plan Implementation Committee was before you on July 14th to make a presentation of our initial recommendations. One of those initial sort of core to those initial recommendations were the fact that we asked that there be 5 priorities that were sort of core to what we're working on in fiscal 21, which was affordable housing, economic development, zoning bylaw review, Elm Street corridor, and regional sewer. And as part of those recommendations, we put forth the additional recommendation of forming working groups to really tackle those priorities, because as we were advocating, they really are things that are interdisciplinary from a committee structure standpoint, and we wanted to make sure that we were tackling them in the most efficient manner. So I know there were some questions when we came before you, and we followed up with two things. One, we did send you a 11-page memo that really outlines not only our thinking behind the working group structure, a short discussion of the open meeting law, and then our specific recommendations. And the executive summary, which is up on the screen right now, really summarizes what we, after some additional work, are coming forward to you guys to take action on tonight. So what we are recommending in terms of a governance structure to tackle these 5 key implementation priorities as it relates to the master plan is forming of 3 working groups, hopefully with your approval tonight, which are the zoning bylaw review working group, which you'll see in Appendix C of your larger memo, the Elm Street corridor working group, which is Appendix D, and then the economic development working group, which is Appendix E. In addition, after some discussion, and I think this kind of reflected some of your concerns at the meeting last time, we have decided that the Affordable Housing Steering Committee is really the best structure to really take forth and charge the work as it relates to the master plan implementation goals. And by design, we really were aligning the goals that we were recommending with what we knew were the goals of affordable housing, which centered around 40B compliance and ADA compliance as it relates to the one initiative we were doing there. And as a result, what we're recommending is that we modify the charge of the Affordable Housing Steering Committee and slightly switch up the membership so that there's better connectivity between master plan implementation and some of the key other committees that will help with the implementation of the near-term goals. And then last but not least is regional sewer. And on that, there's a lot of detail that I think needs to get shared with the Board of Selectmen. And honestly, the urgency around our need to respond to Hull and Situate, at least with kind of where we are at and what our next steps are going to be, has increased literally in the last 10 days. And so what we're recommending is that there be some joint meetings between the Select Board and the Sewer Commission to really, A, get you guys up to speed, and B, make sure that we're responding back to Hull and Situate in a timely manner, but then also determine what kind of working group structure we need to move forward in terms of the type of response that we're going to make longer term. I think there's a short-term need to address some communication that needs to be coordinated between the Select Board and the Commission, and then a longer-term working group. But the way to go about that is really to have a series of joint meetings. So what we're asking for you tonight is threefold. One is we're asking for a discussion and a change to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee charter and their membership. We are then asking for the review and approval of some charters for 3 working groups that I articulated below. And then in addition, we did sort of look back and consider the master plan implementation committee. And I think there are 2 small tweaks that we want to make in terms of our membership to address what I think are some important connectivity relative to the plan longer term. And then also just a specific language change that incorporates the working group concept that we brought before you. So it is a bundle of work, as Diane alluded to, and that's part of the reason we wanted to bring forward kind of the overarching executive summary before we asked you to dive into some of the details.
Thank you. Just for everybody's, I promoted Rob Jeffers, who's the chair of the Affordable Housing Steering Committee, and Paul Kearse into this discussion when we go to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee charge. I think one of the other things that when you looked through the makeup of these working groups is, and I want all of us to consider for discussion at our next meeting, assuming we approve these structures, is we are recommending that there is not one select board member who goes to the master plan implementation committee larger meeting. And the reason for that is there are five master plan implementation goals, and there's 5 of us. And I think it would be better it's each of us owned, if you will, that select board seat on one of these implementation committees. And I think that would serve the board better, because we'll kind of become whatever the expert is in that particular committee. With economic development, because we've discussed it before, perhaps a little bit prematurely, although not necessarily, because there's 2 different tracks that we need to take that conversation on. There are 2 select board members that are involved in that. So just as a backdrop, I'm hoping each select board member will consider which of these master plan priorities they would like to be part of the working group or the other structure on going forward. And we will have a slate. One of the things in the master plan implementation committee change is that they would put forward a slate of the key people to us that they get from the other. Katie, do you want to go through that governance structure? Basically, that you would be recommending to us at our next meeting,
Yep.
you know, how these, who the individuals are on the working groups so that we would appoint them.
Yep. So tonight, what we're looking to do is obviously have a discussion, get your input around the structure. And in some cases, if we can get agreement, approval around specific charters. But what we recognize that with the approval of charters, the simplest way for this to happen is to go back to each of the parent bodies that are going to be participating in the working groups and have them discuss as a committee who they want to recommend joining the working groups. And then master plan implementation committee, just to facilitate it, will bring forth a slate of members for each of the working groups for your approval. Again, we're trying to make this efficient from the perspective of we want to get to implementation, but we also recognize that we'd like to have the Cohasset Select Board's involvement in terms of approval, like we do with other committees that you charter. But again, our hope is that we could actually get agreement around the charters and then bring to you a slate of recommended candidates for each of the working groups at your next meeting.
Great. So do you want to start discussing so we're discussing the working group structure. Does any member of the board have questions on that specifically? Corey?
I have questions. I'm now just wondering, you said on the working group structure, you threw that in there. What do you mean? What do you want to address at this moment?
Just the idea that we would you know, each of these 5 priorities, we'd be boiled down into 3 specific working groups, a sewer discussion that would spawn some kind of governance structure that is yet to be determined, depending on what road that goes down, and that the Affordable Housing Steering Committee would be the structure to move forward the goals for affordable housing.
I guess one question I would have is, and I know the working group structure, there's some concerns about a working group versus, a committee. And I do like that it was outlined that these working groups are going to be subject to open meeting law and operate very much like a committee would. So that kind of brings up ideas about, would a committee be more appropriate? But I guess for a working group, should we set a timeline on these things? Should we say that this working group has, like I was looking at economic development, 6 months, to bring proposals to the board? Should we, I think that if the point here is to really get an outcome, setting a timeline on that outcome may be helpful.
And I don't disagree with you, Corey, that timelines are important. I think our point of view is that we're charging all of these working groups for a year. And part of what we're inserting into the addition that we're inserting into the master plan implementation committee charge is that we will come before you annually to review and revise the working groups. It's on page 7 at the bottom. The Master Plan Implementation Committee will annually meet with the Cohasset Select Board to review and revise the working group structure and recommend a slate of candidates based on the proposed appointments of the public parent body committees. So we're suggesting that this is a one-year set of working groups that in some cases we may have accomplished the majority of the work in the 12 months and not need to refresh. And some of them, like economic development, we may choose to move forward that structure, or we may choose to convert it into an economic development council. You know, when it comes to timelines, you know, we have contemplated in some of the charges, and economic development is one of them, that we're asking, if you actually look on page 11, in the, let's see, the last bullet point under the charge, it says the working group will provide the Cohasset Select Board with a preliminary set of recommendations in 6 months and a further update after 12 months following the formation of the Economic Development Working Group. So we are putting timelines against some of these.
That's great. I think that's going to be, you know, super helpful. I guess the overall concern is, you know, I don't think that it's the best idea to create a working group that will exist infinitely. At a certain point, it does need to be, you know, grow into
Unsettled.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
No,
I'm glad we have that in here. That's great.
And I guess, you know, to address everybody's kind of core concern around this, I mean, we view these as being unique in the sense that they are interdisciplinary, so they cross committees. And then 2, you know, we're doing this because we're trying to create flexibility and urgency around these initiatives. We're not doing this to add another layer of committee structure. But, you know, to make sure that we have some credibility from a public perspective, I think it does help, and with your encouragement at the last meeting to kind of formalize a charge and formalize a membership and have you guys appoint ultimately who is the membership for, and as we said, an annual slate of candidates. I think that lends credibility that will be important to the success of these groups overall. And since they're subject to open meeting law, they will be public meetings. I think the couple things that we put in place in terms of structure, I think that will also help you guys and the public understand is that, first off, these master plan working groups they're there to do the heavy lift. We recognize that agendas get busy and full, and as a result, these are focused conversations that are going to happen. We also recognize that they don't have the ability to vote or to recommend any specific action except back to the parent body committees. So it isn't like people are going to be going off and voting on action, but they're rather coming up with implementation strategies that if they need to go back to planning for a vote, that's where it goes. Or if it needs to go back to Cohasset Select Board for vote, that's where it goes. It's really generating the action versus generating the formal votes, which are still sitting with the parent body groups. And then last but not least, we're very intentional in terms of connecting these back to town employees. And we were also very intentional about not making one in-town employee in particular, our town planner, the person that was going to be on each of these individual committees. And so we were deliberate in kind of recognizing who the best town employee connection was, in part because we want to make sure that whatever these groups are doing is connected back to the actual town hall that's going to ultimately have to do implementation around them.
Great. Jack, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I guess, first of all, I think there's a concern that we're getting increasingly elaborate labyrinth of various boards, committees, town departments, employees. It gets a little complicated. So I think we as a board should be cognizant of that. As far as the immediate, I think Corey has some good insights. What I would simply suggest is a common sense. Every one of these boards needs to report to the Board of Selectmen in 6 months and they all will sunset after 12 months. If in fact there's a need to extend them, we can always extend it, but that way, this is what it's there, has a deadline, has to report halfway through what they're doing, and at the end of the 12 months, absent some grave need, it sunsets. That would be my suggestion.
Just
For all
to jump on that, I wonder if it might make more sense to say that the committees will, I agree with the sunsetting, but maybe that the committees or the working groups, and they really are committees. We're just calling them working groups because they are intentionally working with staff who are the day-to-day operations people that are going to move things forward. Instead of a 6-month report, maybe we ask that they give a minimum of 2 updates to the Board of Selectmen. And because I can see a few of these literally needing to come to us in September and another one in October.
That's fine.
So it's 2 a year, which could be
Minimum.
6. So 2 minimum, yep. And then we'll
And then if
just,
I'm sorry, Diane.
no. And that's the reason why I think a select board member should be on each of these committees to make sure that all of this isn't happening in a silo, and that, you know, Jack can say, hey, listen, I'm on the affordable housing and I want to, you know, we need to get on an agenda in the next couple of weeks because we have some decision-making points, and that's going to be
We
on
can do
us
that.
to make that
We can
happen.
do that. Nothing precludes them coming in and saying, yes, we have our 6-month report, but listen, we need to tell you about something. That's entirely their prerogative. They can call, the chair and go on the agenda.
Yep.
No problem.
1 second, Katie. Carrie, is it all right if I let Katie speak and then I'll get to you? Because I saw your hand up.
Sure.
All right.
Go ahead.
So
Did you
Jack,
wanna
I'm very comfortable with the charge, including updates directly to the select board, and 2 seems like a reasonable number. I would push back a little bit when it comes to sunsetting all of them in 12 months. To be realistic, and I'll just use 2 examples, economic development and zoning bylaw review. Those are 2 examples of working groups that are going to need to work over an extended period of time. And so while it may make sense to sunset some of them within a 12 or 18-month period, I think some of them we have to recognize at the outset have a much longer charge. Zoning bylaw review has 20 master plan implementation strategies. That's not going to get done in 12 months. And economic development is like a huge multi-year lift. So I just want to throw that out there as a consideration. As much as there's urgency on all of these initiatives, we're also recognizing that we're implementing a master plan over a decade. And so some of these may need to continue on beyond that sunset period.
And there's no reason why they cannot in a year come and make that argument. And I think this select board would probably say that makes sense, but it's good for them to know that they're going to have to come back and justify. And I would probably say, yes, I understand both those. I know zoning very well. I have years of zoning experience. So that's probably very true, but I think it's always a good idea to have them come back and reestablish their charter.
And that's what we're trying to accomplish, Jack, in the language on page 7 in Appendix A of forcing the Master Plan Implementation Committee on your behalf to bring this conversation back annually.
Yep.
And then this just for those that are listening, including Rob and Paul, this wouldn't any kind of sunset provision if we decide we wanted to go in that direction. I think Katie's making her case about the
working groups.
Diane, you're muted.
You muted yourself, Diane.
How did I do that? You sure you didn't do it, Chris?
I did not do that.
I know, I get fidgety. Sorry about that. Obviously, Affordable Housing Steering Committee is a standing committee. So if we were to go in a sunset direction, it wouldn't apply to that. And who knows, it would just be those 3 straight up working groups that we'd be talking about. Carrie, I know, and then I'll get to Corey.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Katie was saying. I think you hear about sunsetting versus not sunsetting. I just wanted to sharpen what the role will be of the select board members on these groups, and also, you know, maybe we could even have each select board member do monthly updates on what's going on within the working groups to the general public. I think that we need to obviously increase communication here on all levels so the town is informed of what we're doing. But, you know, is this kind of a liaison role that we're thinking, Katie? Is that your vision of it or not? What's the difference?
I'm hoping that you guys will pick up a shovel and help us start to excavate some of these priorities. Like, honestly, as much as that's part of the reason that Diane and I discussed, like, having one person as kind of a titular representative on master plan implementation doesn't allow the real work to get done. And so our hope is that, yes, you're a liaison, but you're also going to be working on these committees and helping implement them. And they're tied to the goals that you guys have talked about as a board. So hopefully there's some interest amongst all of you to participate at some level.
Yeah.
Right. And it's more just being in the room where it happens, being part of the conversation. And as Katie said, these working groups would not be structured to take votes, with the exception of Affordable Housing Steering Committee, if you consider that a separate kind of entity. Corey, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm still quite uncomfortable with this structure, you know, just blanketly, because I don't think it meets our goal for accessibility. I mean, I think, you know, the idea that if we don't have a sunset clause, and, you know, I'm totally on board that we need to jumpstart economic development, we need to jumpstart zoning bylaw, and I want to make that happen. But I think in 12 months, if we're sitting here saying we need to keep doing this, then we need to have a committee. We can't continue to, you know, I mean, if I'm somebody in town and I want to, you know, look on the, you know, what the economic development committee is, I'm going to be looking through master plan, and now there's not a lot of, you know, there's 2 citizens at large versus a normal board, which would have more. I just, you know, I would be more comfortable if we understood this as, you know, master plan is good at packaging these things and giving us our goals, but we need to have a moment where we say, now it's a committee, just like we have affordable housing. That's my concern here.
I guess the difference for me is that in some of these cases, what really needs to happen is some cross coordination and some cross pollination between standing committees, to be honest, to move this forward. And so that's part of the reason why we're recommending a working group structure, is that again, we're chartering them specifically so that they're going to be subject to open meeting law. They're going to be functioning like a committee would, except we're populating them with kind of the standing committees that need to coordinate on this, and where there are roles or opportunities for citizens at large. But I'll be very, you know, a lot of this has to do with creating some of the coordination between committees. It's just not going to naturally pollinate unless you actually engender a working group around it.
You know, one of the other things with economic development, just to use that as an example, is, you know, I can see that some of their real initial first actions would be like, we need a citizen committee, or we need a committee of business owners, or we need to reach out to deal with this immediate thing. And then we need to, you know, raise a separate economic development council that does some of the more traditional economic development council stuff in terms of grants. So, you know, to just kind of put an exclamation point on what Katie said, and she's said it much better than I will. But I mean, these are structured like committees, but they really are working groups, because we need all the key people at the table. When we're advancing big discussions like affordable housing, economic development, you know, you need representatives from the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board that are going to make sure that that information, and the staff, that information gets into the right boards for further discussion and deliberation. You know, these are roll your sleeves up and let's just figure out who we need to bring to the table. And I see them spawning off into much more open and accessible to the community, you know, whatever, you know, committees or discussions. Carrie, were you trying to get in, or?
I just like the sense of urgency, I think, that comes with the language of working groups. I agree with Katie on that. I think that it highlights that we're really trying to actually get stuff done and not just be a committee forever. So I'm on board with this.
Paul? Go ahead, Paul. Sorry. I got you.
So
Right.
one option would be to do this for 1 year with the two options during the year of a presentation, and then you certainly can recharge it at the end of the year. I think something like zoning, you're really not going to get a lot. You'll get some done in a year, but that's going to be a much longer term prospect and development of ideas and decisions. So, the 12-month sunsetting, it can always be, re-energizing, 11 months saying, what, we're going to need to look at zoning for a little bit longer, or affordable housing might need, maybe they don't need it. But I think the 12 months is reasonable, with the understanding, with a proviso that you could potentially just recharge it in a year.
And in that case, we're only talking about economic development, zoning, and the Elm Street corridor. That just frames that as there's urgency. You're going to come before us twice. We're going to have a select board member there, planning board member where appropriate, and we're going to just start driving some decision making at the parent board level. That sound okay with the board?
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is it helpful to go through each of the specific charges in the appendix, or have you guys already taken the time to review that? Because I think, again, the detail, part of the reason that we did the longer memo was to provide you with the detail and the comfort that there was some thought behind each of these.
I read them.
Yeah,
I read them.
They're fine. You did good work, Katie. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very comfortable with them, obviously. And, I think if we were to just, hang on, Paul, I see you. If we were to just, what I would like the board to do is to agree to the structure in these five working group, 3 working groups and 2 committees, and the composition tonight. We can, with addendum, with changes to that they're 1-year committees, they're 1-year working groups, and that they will report to the Board of Selectmen, Select Board at least twice a year, but I think we're just going to have to be more aggressive about that. And if we could vote on that structure, and then move on to the very specific small changes to the 2 standing committees that are also on our agenda, which is Master Plan Implementation and Affordable Housing. That would be great. I'm going to hear from Corey, and then I'll get to you, Paul.
I'm comfortable on voting on individual groups, but voting kind of on the structure for all 3. I think my biggest hang up is economic development. There were myself, Katie, Amy, Jack, Lauren Lynn. We were supposed to have a meeting about this week. There were certain members that dropped out of that meeting, and I'd like to have that scheduled meeting that we were supposed to have before voting on this, because there were, conversations that we were, or even talked about having, that we just haven't had a chance yet. So the other 2 I'm comfortable with, if that's okay to split it up.
That's fine with me. If anybody has any other comments from the board, and then I'll go to Paul Kears. All right, board members, okay? Okay, Paul, I'm going to unmute you. Hang on. Yes, you have a comment on this?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And hopefully you can hear me okay. Feedback. What I'd like to suggest is having a sunset of 18 months and having the groups report every 6 months.
Paul, I think you're in the meeting twice. Yeah, I think that's what's called.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, I don't know if Chris, you can take me off one of those. Chris added me twice.
Okay, Paul Kears. Let's try this again.
Okay. So let me.
Paul, I just muted you because you're getting like an echo, but I have you up here twice, so I don't know if there's another if you have a phone that's also logged into the Zoom.
I don't, but I can text.
I don't think that's it.
Yeah, I think if you mute your computer, Paul, I think that's what's.
So I muted it. So is that any better?
I don't know, talk real fast.
I want to move that we go to 18 months, reporting every 6 months. And now the host has removed me.
Not me.
No, Paul, I removed your alternate self, the evil side of you. Now we can hear you talk.
Now we have nice Paul. Yeah. So Paul, I've muted you now only because
Okay.
Paul just brought up a suggestion for the board to consider, which is that we, instead of a year, that we charge the 2 working groups that we're going to discuss, or 3, with an 18-month term, and they report every 6 months. I just want to say that I want to say at least twice a year. I'd rather do that because I personally would like to see a lot more communication from the working groups through the master plan, through or however we want to do it from a practical standpoint based on what projects are happening. So Carrie, are you trying to talk? Okay. Okay. Yeah, Katie.
I don't disagree in terms of the updates. I think that you can put as many updates, but setting a time frame, we may come to you twice in 2 months. So I think regular updates, whether we put it 2 or 3 over whatever X amount of time. I mean, again, part of the reason for asking the Board of Selectmen to step up on the working group level was it so you always had the ability to give that or get that update in an immediate fashion, in addition to formal updates from the working group. I think you deserve both, frankly.
Okay.
And if it takes you guys having a standing agenda item under, working group updates on your agenda, just to give a quick, 30-second blurb of we met and here's what we're doing, then that's another way of tackling it. So
Right.
I'm open to whatever people feel best about. I mean, again, the idea is that there is some urgency to get work done. Updates can obviously be a part of that. And, the review, whether it's in 12 months or in 18 months, we're absolutely willing to come back. And that's part of the reason that we amended the master plan implementation committee charge, is to come back to you and say, this working group is working, let's continue it. Or you know what, this working group is basically done with all of their work, let's sunset it.
Right. So if it's okay, I'm going to try to summarize this and move on. Oh, Jack, I'm sorry, I just saw your hand.
I was going to summarize it too. All these things, Katie, there's nothing to keep you from coming back. If there's a reason, you come back before the board, you give Diane a call, we'll put it on there. This is urgent. All we're just trying to do is put some structure and also create the urgency that you want by saying there is a deadline. So let's get it done. But anyway, Diane, I think you're about to say about the same thing. So you just
Yep.
tell me what I need to move.
Yep, I would recommend that we move the structures as presented in our packet on the zoning bylaw working group and the Elm Street corridor working group. And if the board, with a minimum of 2 annual updates, and we all know that that will be more frequent, and a did I already say a 1?
2 updates within the, not 2 annual updates, 2 updates within the year.
Within the year.
Yeah.
And that would be for zoning and Elm Street in deference to Corey's concern about the affordable housing needing at least another discussion that was intended to happen. Does that make sense to the board? And is anybody willing to move that?
I'm willing to move it if I don't have to remember what it was.
We got Tracy's fingers are flying across the keyboard.
And it wasn't affordable housing, it was economic development, or the economic
Yeah.
development charge.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah. So the 2 working groups that we're voting on is zoning and Elm Street. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other comments?
Is there a sunset on this, or we
Yes,
not
there's
to
a
We're
say-
sunset.
amending it so that it has that. So you're voting on
1
it
year.
per amended.
Yep. As amended. So we'll take a roll call vote beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, I.
Okay, great. Katie, is it all right if we just push the economic development discussion so that you have Corey and Jack and whomever they were meeting with have an opportunity to flesh that out a little bit and come back to us on the 25th?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment from Corey. I think that, it'll give Jack and Corey and Amy and myself and Lauren just one more go through if there are changes to the charter.
Appreciate that.
We've got, I would only ask that Corey and Jack, you guys respond to the doodle poll that's in your inbox. I think I'm the only one that's responded so far, and I'll shake Amy down for her response, but we're looking at dates for early next week.
Thank you.
I'm open whenever you need me.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right. And before we get to master plan, I want to go to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee. Just because we have Rob and Paul, and I know they have like meetings every night this week, so I want to be sensitive to that. And Rob, I think I just wanted to let you speak if you wanted to, because you had some suggestions in terms of the draft charge for Affordable Housing Steering Committee. So I want to turn the floor over to you, if that's okay. Or do you want me? Do you have them? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's yours.
So I think in the first bit, there was a few lines that were added. I don't know if you can put it up so people can see it, but I think it's really important that we focus on the fact that what we want the Affordable Housing Committee to do is help create affordable housing. And I think that's what that's trying to get to when talking about completion of affordable housing permits. But I really see our role as making this happen. The other comment I would put, it's, the word assist is here. I don't really think that we've been, if we're assisting, who's leading? And I think it would make sense to say that, our charge is to, lead in the facilitation of creating affordable housing units in Cohasset. I think that's what we want to do. We've done a lot of great things. We've done a lot of work, but let's be honest, we haven't done that. And I think that needs to be one of the main areas. And I thought that that's what that was trying to get to, but I would just be a little bit more explicit. And I think it also, by saying that we're leading the facilitation, doesn't mean that we're not working with the other groups, but we need to go to the trust for the purse strings. We need to go to all the other groups to get any sort of approvals, but we're really the ones that are going to push the projects through.
Could I summarize that, Rob, and see if this would be in agreement with you, based on what you know of your committee, and then the board, for the board's consideration, to change that first bullet to lead in the facilitation of creating affordable housing units in Cohasset to ensure town's ability to attain compliance under MGL 40B Safe Harbor. So it's basically lead in the facilitation of creating affordable housing units in Cohasset. And then the second half of the sentence remains the same: to ensure town's ability to attain compliance. Does that work?
For me, yes.
And then the other two bullets, are they?
Yeah, I mean, some are small little changes. One is, talking about identifying, projects. I would say identify and prioritize, because, with the housing production plan, we do have well over a dozen identified potential projects. So it's, that's just a small little, piece. The third bullet point, we did have a discussion with Lauren. I don't know that this really fits in our charge. I mean, we're of course more than welcome to help, but I don't know what we would actually be doing other than maybe helping with a few questions on a small part of the ADA self-evaluation. So I don't know that that third bullet needs to be there. If it is, it's not the end of the world, but it's just not something we really focus on.
It's ultimately the responsibility of the planner, I would imagine.
I think, Rob, the only reason it was there is that by completing it, it does put us in conjunction with actually housing production on a path to be eligible for housing choice capital grants, which is something that affordable housing is obviously interested in because it gives us funding. So the only reason for including it was, and again, the ADA self-evaluation transition plan doesn't put us back on housing choice immediately, but it's a step in that direction that combined with actual housing production will get you to qualify for housing choice capital grants, which is a funding mechanism. So I could go either way, but I think keeping visibility on it is critical because without that, and in combination with the production that you're talking about in bullet point 1, you will not be in a place to qualify for housing choice capital grants in the future.
Yeah, my concern there is, what am I doing? If it's part of my charge, what is my response? I don't think Lauren needs me looking over her shoulder in doing this. And so if there's something for me to do, I am more than happy to have it on there. But if it's just for me to be aware of, I don't think that's part of my charge.
I guess what I see as your charge is making sure that we qualify for housing choice capital grants in the future.
Could we, and then I'll get to you, Paul, could we say
So again,
something like,
I'm happy to go either way, but to be honest, if we don't have access to grants that we need to implement your housing production plan, we've got a fault in our plan. So that's the only reason for linking the two.
I 100% agree. It's why, I guess, I'm sorry, I'll stop after this. Is what do you want me to do to make that happen? And if it's to help Warren to make that happen, okay, we can do that. But I just don't want, I want to make sure we're clear on what we're focused on and what we're doing.
Yeah.
Diane?
yes, Chris, and then I'll go to Paul.
What if you, I'm sorry, Paul, if you want to go, go ahead.
Paul, no, it was Paul Pierce.
Paul Pierce. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He can wait.
So what if you just change it to, work with the director of planning to
ensure.
or to improve the town's eligibility for housing choice capital grants or something like that. Because this is a keyword we're already working on internally, but there may be other things that pop up, and obviously being eligible for housing choices is kind of a key thing, I think, right? That's where I agree. I understand, Rob. ADA is not really something that falls to your bandwidth typically. It's housing choice does, and stuff to get there is really what you're looking for. You muted, Diane.
I know. I think if we narrow that just to, work with the director of planning to ensure the town is eligible for housing choice grants in the future, that just is a conversation more than anything. Paul Pierce, did you want to weigh in? Hold on. I gotcha. Go ahead.
Good. It's working.
It is.
Yeah. So just some clarification on that piece of it. I don't believe it needs to be put in there at all. I will do agree with Katie that it has to be on the radar. So I worked on this directly myself for 4 months prior to Lauren's arrival. We worked very quickly because we found out we were eligible for a housing choice grant. We were trying to get a $450,000 grant for affordable housing. And the issue that we have is, Katie, is that there is, at that time, there were 15 to 17 items that were listed on the requirements for the grant. And you had to meet a percentage of those. And out of the things that you met, you were graded on whether the town was forward with some of those items. So one of the things was, you had to have a housing trust that was funded, and we didn't. So they changed it this year. Now there's 21 items on the housing choice grant. So I would agree that to take it out, but to put something in effect of being aware of the requirements that may be needed and updated on an annual basis to see if we qualify for housing choice grants. Because we did miss out on that 450,000, and we were in a transition between town planners. So there's other things on that housing choice grant that Cohasset will never, ever meet. They have to do with a lot of inner city issues.
Mhm.
So we're never going to meet those. So when I'm suggesting, you're putting an element of a grant requirement on us that if you're going to put one on, you would put them all on.
So could I just try to get us to a next step on this? And Chris, I'm gonna ask for your input. You know, for Katie and the Master Plan Implementation Committee and the Master Plan, clearly this evaluation plan and ensuring we take advantage of these housing choice grants is a priority, or which is why it was added to this, just as the priorities were added to the other working groups. Most of these grants are really done by town staff and the planning director. So, I mean, should we just remove this line in general, knowing that, or should we just make some summary that, you know, the committee works with the director of planning on identifying housing grant availability or something like that?
I think that more generic one, Diane, would be best. I mean, I was on an update with the MMA today about the economic development bond bill, which has a new housing choice program built in, but there's no agreement between the House and the Senate on what's going to look like. And as Paul said, they keep changing the requirements. And I hear the latest thing they're going to do is really tweak it to rural. Well, we're not rural any more than we're an inner ring suburb. So, so I do think if it simply says work with the director of planning to assist on housing grants or something like that. I mean, you know, because that, as Paul knows, there's a vast array of them out there. Housing choice just happens to be one bucket, but there's a lot of other things out there that we might be eligible for depending on the specific project. It could be something supporting veterans or senior housing or, you know, you name it. So maybe you just, if it needs to be in there, maybe you just make it that kind of more generic that you did at the end.
Okay, does any select board members have any comments on that? We'll just add that particular line will become more generic. Is that okay, Katie?
It's fine. I think that just having the steering committee have some onus around the housing grants, again, in conjunction with the director of planning is the right solve.
Okay.
Paul and Rob are comfortable.
Okay. And then I think lastly, Paul, Rob, and you tell me, I know that the one other concern you had was just about the representation, because currently you have 4 active citizens at large. So we don't want to necessarily take them away. Correct?
Unless you guys want to, you're the boss.
No, no. And to Corey's point, we want to be, you know, we want to have as many citizens involved in these discussions. And this is this is a standing committee. So I want to
Did the
tweak
number
with it.
change between the last charge and this charge? I'm sorry, I thought we were mirroring what the last charge had.
Now you did, Katie, you did mirror what the last charge in 2016 had, and there's the composition is I don't know, it wasn't exactly what the original charge had. So
I gotcha. I'm sorry. So the reality is different than the charge. That's fine. Okay.
That's
So
correct.
to be clear, we came to you guys and we changed the charge last year. And that was the other point, is like we went down to 7 because we were having troubles with a
Quorum.
And so that's the last point I'd make, is just that I get having the select board as a member, but I think I speak on behalf of a lot of these smaller committees. It's very hard to get a quorum sometimes, especially like in summer months. We've had liaisons from the board. We have liaisons from the MPC. We've never had somebody attend. I'm sure this will be completely different this time, but it's just really the importance that if they're going to be active members, they have to actually come. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to
Make quorum.
Make quorum. And I get that you guys have a ton of meetings and stuff to go to.
Yep. Corey, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just, I mean, for structures of committees, is it typical that there are enough citizens at large to make a quorum, or are some committees made up of a majority of board, people that are appointed to other boards, just,
Most committees are not serving other boards.
Okay, so it would be kind of more traditional if, there were 4 citizens at large and then we kept with our liaison relationship.
Well, and most boards, many boards don't even have citizens at large as a function. Like there is no concept for citizen at large on capital budget or advisory or,
right.
So there are many committees where citizens at large don't exist. You apply, to the troika boards and you're nominated.
But that technically is a citizen at large position, right? Because it's anybody can apply and be selected for it. The question is, the committees that are made up with a representative from the planning board or a representative from Concom or a representative from affordable housing. So I think most committees are citizen at large. This particular committee, I think because of the great work of the committee and the commitment the town has made to affordable housing, has done very well with their citizens at large in attending meetings. And it's probably the others, that the planning board member or the select board member that have a million other meetings and liaison roles that are holding up the quorum. So
and I think that the real challenge is you have like a meeting Jenga. Like there's no real meetings on Monday or Friday usually. And so, but it can't be at the same time as the planning board, can't be the same time we had conservation for a while, can't be the same time as select. So you really run out of days in a month that you can actually try to plan, then the more people you have that are sitting on other boards. And so that's just the challenge that we have.
Very well put, the meeting Jenga. So,
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. And again, the only reason the suggestion was made to add the select board member was, again, because, we thought that each select board member could have kind of a responsibility beyond a liaison role to getting in the weeds and understanding what these working groups are doing. And this is different because it is a committee and it does, it can vote and promulgate matters. Any select board member have any thoughts on next steps? Jack, I see your hand.
Yeah, I really echo Paul Kieris. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The liaison, I've been liaison for some things. I think that makes sense. If you're interested, you can show up, you can participate. You may not be able to vote. But I think that we really need to just kind of simplify a little bit. And when we have the core, I was on affordable housing, and I think we did some pretty good work. We had the core people, worked hard. We had some very good meetings. Rob was on there, did an excellent job as chair. I think he should stay there for the rest of his natural life, but anyway.
You just look at the bottom line, it says I can only do it for 3 years. So
well, we can change that.
That's right. Well, this is our committee. We can do what we want with it.
Anyway, I think liaisons is a very good model.
So in other words, what we would be doing is, Katie, based on your draft that's in our packet, Appendix B, we would be upping the citizens at large to 4.
Yep.
And we would be, the select board member would be a liaison role.
Yep.
I think then we run into the 8 problem again, though.
Do you want to move master plan to a liaison role? I'm fine with that.
Yes.
Yep. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yep. And then we also asked for a sewer liaison, which is down here. And so that
That's
I
fine.
think that keeps it manageable.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Okay. So you're at 7.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Great.
You're at
Excellent.
7 with liaisons for master plan, select board, and sewer.
And a quorum's 4, and I know Paul and Rob never miss meetings, so you're halfway there.
So
Okay.
take comfort in knowing that there is a selectman appointed to the housing trust.
Yes.
So there is participation in housing by the selectmen.
And there's cross pollination between those two groups as well too. So, okay, so I'd like to propose that we move on this Affordable Housing Steering Committee charge per our discussions. And unless anybody has any other comments, I ask for somebody to make a motion.
I can do it. All right.
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah. I make a motion to amend the Affordable Housing Steering Charge to the existing draft with our changes that we made today in the meeting, including 4 citizens at large, 1 representative from the Housing Authority, 1 representative from Planning Board, 1 representative from the Council of Elder Affairs.
That's great. Any other changes? Okay. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay. All right. Roll call vote. Beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye.
Great work. Thank you. We have one last committee. Paul and Rob.
Rob and Paul, how about I make the changes? I'll send it to you for a quick look, and then we'll send it on to Diane and Tracy.
Yeah, if you could send it to all of us at the same time.
Okay,
Trace,
fine.
yep. Thanks. Because we just voted it. So if there's any changes, we'll have to deal with that separately.
No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss a change, Diane. I'm not changing.
Not suggesting you did. Okay. All right, Master Plan Implementation Committee. Some recommended changes to that. And that is, Chris, you want to bring that up? And this runs us into, similar challenges in terms of a quorum, but I think it makes, in other words, in getting people on multiple committees. But I think at this level, Katie, and you can probably speak to this better, most of the work is going to be in these working groups and in these, in like Affordable Housing Steering Committee. And then this Master Plan Implementation Committee will not be as much of a heavy lift in terms of just overseeing the overall structure. In terms of meeting.
We've been meeting monthly. I would suggest that it probably goes down to a month to every 6 weeks. Again, reflecting exactly what you were saying, which is a lot of the work is going to be happening at the working group level. And the point of the Master Plan Implementation Committee is to make sure that the working groups are staying on track, that we're staying coordinated, and to the extent that we need to, advocate for resources in particular. That's one of the key roles that the Master Plan Implementation Committee in their charge is directed to do, and make sure that we get the resources we need at the working group level.
Okay. Any questions? Do you want to go ahead, Katie?
So I guess, part of the conversation was there are 2 chapters that do not have representation on Master Plan Implementation Committee. One is one is housing, and the second is historical. And the thought process being to kind of fix that now, as this board is going to be in existence for a decade or so. So that was the thought process behind the composition of the membership.
Chris, can you scroll down, just because I believe there's also this is just suggesting that they'll meet. It says annually meet with the Cohasset Select Board to review and revise the working group structure and recommend a slate of candidates based on the proposed appointments of the public parent body. So that's what we were discussing earlier, in that the master plan would bring to us the full slate of who's coming from planning board to the zoning bylaw review committee. And then we, of course, the select board would, amongst ourselves, decide which one of us would take on each of these 5 priorities. Is that clear? And does anybody have any comments or questions?
And the only other addition at the end was in the last paragraph, just adding the planning board's role in the and in 10 years, talking about whether we recommend constituting a new master plan. It is actually their statutory responsibility, so that's why they're being added in there. But again, that's 10 years from now, so.
Well, hopefully we won't be looking at each other on a screen.
I will not be around in 10 years talking to you guys about this.
All right, I hope I at least see 3D people by then.
Yeah.
So, board, any comments? Questions? Okay, I'll turn it over to Paul Kears. Do you have a question?
Just real quick, we welcome the addition of the seat on this particular board. We've had a liaison, Peter Hobson, who was the liaison for us over to master planning.
Yeah.
He's always went to all of those meetings. That's the reason why for our steering committee, we ask that you not have that seat and make it a liaison seat. So Peter can be your liaison to us as well as us being
Back and
on
forth.
the board. Yeah, so that was our thought process behind that. So
That'd be fantastic. Again, I work with Peter on the master plan, and he's a great contributor. So if he's going to be the person that you guys nominate, and again, the thought process was that this is a 10-year, this plan is going to be implemented over 10 years. And so there is a longer term link that needs to happen. And so the thought process was actually having a member. Are you recommending that it just be a liaison back to us?
No. I want the seat to you from us. And what I'm saying is, you wanted to have a seat on ours, which we just agreed to have a liaison instead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that if Peter's going to be at your meeting anyway,
Mm-hmm.
he could liaison what we've been doing to you, rather than you sending another person to our meeting to find out what we've been doing. That's all.
I got it.
And again, I think there's some interest on at least our committee members to be more active. So I don't see there being, again, I'm really think it's important to have a member from affordable housing, whether, I know amongst my membership, there are some folks that want to be a direct liaison to yours, if you're open to it.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on the proposed charge and structure changes to the Master Plan Implementation Committee? If there aren't any questions, I will ask for a motion to approve. And it's appendix, what?
A.
I don't, A. Who would like to make the motion?
To approve the changes to the Master Plan Implementation Committee charge as outlined in Appendix A.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and a roll call vote beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
And that passes. Okay, everybody take a deep breath. That was fantastic work. It was a lot of information. I see it, Chris. Katie, thank you. Chris?
We have one last thing to tackle in this report. It's the
Oh, yeah?
regional sewer.
Oh.
It's making the commitment to set a series of meetings with the sewer commission and any other interested parties, so that you all come up to speed. You can come up with a consensus and then figure out what the next steps are.
Yes, and I would like to recommend that whoever makes a motion that we commit to a series of meetings as soon as possible, also include in that motion that we try to do one of them, which is a joint meeting between the board and the sewer commission, as early as possible, and definitely before the end of the month. Because Corey?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Katie. Katie, do you have any draft language for things that your committee has already bounced around for what a structure of this working group would be like? Just out of curiosity.
So we do have some recommendations. I think first and foremost is a point of view on Cohasset's position relative to regional sewer. Full stop.
Fair. Thank you.
Everything else, whether it's land use or it's public forums that was discussed at your board back in May, is secondary to us having a point of view that represents Cohasset. And I commend the select board for taking a role in this. And I know statutorily the sewer commission has and does need a role in this, but we need to get to a point of view, full stop. It's to the point where it's been 6 months and we have not responded to letters from neighbors.
And
I'm sorry, 5 months, but that's still, I mean, 5 months.
it's still
5 months
unacceptable.
for the COVID break is still not great.
And, you know, I think the idea would be that our first meeting with the sewer commission would be pretty much getting us up to speed, because none of us, the 5 of us, each probably have a different level of information. And then you add to the sewer commission that has actually been dealing with this for over a year. We need to all get on the same page and understand what the facts are and what we're talking about and what a regional sewer plan might look like, and then agree, to Katie's point, to some kind of view for the town. So I would like to see that first meeting again, if possible, well, as soon as possible, and definitely by the end of the month. Jack?
Yeah, I think I'd like to move that we move to have a joint meeting with the sewer board at as soon as possible, and that we continue active discussions, as this is a major issue.
Is there a second? And then I'll get your comment, Kerry.
I'll second that.
Okay, and then you will have a comment?
I completely agree with what Katie was saying about point of view. We do need to all get on the same page. I'm not sure all of us are going to agree on what's best for the town, but I do think the eventual goal is to probably bring this to town meeting and put all of the information out there and let the town vote on it. And it needs to happen sooner rather than later. So we do need to expedite this.
Yeah, and just for to clarify, you know, I think when I said we have to come to a next, we have to agree, we may not vote, we have to take a vote. We have to take a hard line and say, this is the pathway we want to go on. Again, we may not individually agree on what that looks like, but we don't know that until we get all the information, you know, together at the same time. Paul, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's time to get to the point where we have a joint meeting and we get an idea what paths are the options for the town. Yes.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote unless there's any other comments. All right, great. Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Katie, so much for your incredibly hard work and diligence on this.
No, thank you guys. And I appreciate the level of detail we had to go into tonight, and appreciate your support. And we will come back to you with the follow-ups that we need to.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be in touch because we're going to be discussing this again at August 25th, and certainly sewer probably before that.
Yep.
Okay, where are we? Chris, I was going to say, did you let Jason in? So the next thing on our agenda is I'm going to turn the floor over to Chris to discuss a Mass Works grant and what that entails and what we need to consider.
Okay, thank you. So a memo was circulated to the board from Jason yesterday with a map, and I can put up on the screen if you want. We also had a quick summary of a consultant's expenses. So what the Mass Works program is a program that helps build infrastructure primarily to support housing and economic development. And the town has not, I think, participated. I don't know if the town's ever participated in this program, but most certainly not in recent days. And the Baker Polito administration has really been encouraging housing, affordable housing, and economic redevelopment. That's been really big issues for them. And we've been looking at opportunities in town to help fund existing, you know, it's not just to build something new, and sometimes it's to help support existing needs. And there's Jason, so I'll have him talk about this more in a second. So when we were exploring options and we were looking at the Elm Street corridor, looking at the South Main Street corridor, this kind of rose to the top. And this is really, we're talking about, the whole site around the Stop and Shop Plaza and the area around it. There's been a long time discussion about getting sidewalk connectivity, which will help not only the Avalon and the folks who live down there, but also people who want to be able to walk or push strollers, do whatever, down to the Stop and Shop Plaza, which is becoming more economically vital, particularly as that new physical building with the 20 units proceeds. There's a main that needs to be replaced, and if we do it at the same time. It runs between Sawyer and Pond on that side along 3A. And then, of course, there's this concept of a sewer connection, which the sewer commissioners have approved conceptually. And this would allow it to be built, obviously at the cost with state funds, and would also allow it to be sized by the town to provide optional but not required future access. And again, whether it be the small gas station across the street right there in the corner, or anything else down the road, it doesn't mandate it, but it most certainly gives options. So the way I described it to somebody the other day was building a door. We're not opening the door. We're not giving out sets of keys. But if it's going to be built, it might as well be built to allow future potential expansion as approved by the town, not as of right? That's not what this would do. And again, so I have Jason here to talk a little bit about this. Again, so the key here is that this application really checks a lot of boxes. We have affordable housing approved by the town. Those 20 units have been approved by this board and other town boards. There's economic revitalization. This is a pre-existing center being redeveloped, which is a big check mark for the state. The walkability, streets, all of that to allow people to walk to and from the physical site by adding the sidewalks which don't exist today. And also there's environmental issues. So this is a key, the Peppermint Brook watershed flows right there behind this site, and anything that can be done to maintain and improve that water quality is really important. So it kind of checks a lot of boxes. So I'm going to have Jason that talk through this, and obviously if there's any questions, please ask. Now again, we can apply for the grant. I don't normally have to come to the board for approval for these things. That said, without the board's support, letter of support, this it's almost pointless to go forward. If the board doesn't want to go forward with this, can't go to the state and say, give us $2 million if there isn't a real resounding sense that the community wants this. So I have Jason to talk about it, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Just before Jason jumps in, Chris, I just want to make sure that at some point, and maybe it's after Jason, we're explicit about what action you want the board to take tonight.
Yeah, so there's really one official thing would be so this has to be filed by August, no later than August 28th. Then we get a word back on October, November, and this is a project that has to be near shovel ready, and this really is near shovel ready. It's a very easy design. We actually have designs for the sidewalks. We have potential designs for sewer, and the water pipe is a fairly simple thing to add. And there's permitting that has to be done, but those are all doable things. So I need so the 28th is after your next board meeting, but obviously you can't give you 3 days to chew on this. So if you were comfortable enough to give a vote of support tonight, we'll draft a letter and we'll move forward. If you still want to chew on it, we still have to get the application done. We can't pull an application together in 3 days. So at town meeting, we put forward an article that allowed for consulting money. And I said if we were going to tap it, I would come back to all of you to let you know what we want to do. In order so we need an engineering consultant to help with this, and it's $4,500. I circulated that to all of you tonight too. And I'm telling you that I would like to take that out. So if there's objections, tell me now. You don't necessarily have to vote to support that, but I said back. So if there's concerns about it, please let me know, because I need to be able to fund that so we can get that application put together and have it ready. If for some reason you still want to have us check back on the 25th, we can with a completed application, and if something's changed between now and then, things can change. But basically, I need at least a nod of support for the consulting, and then more importantly, a vote of support for the application itself, whether it's tonight or it's some sense of positivity tonight with a turn back on the 25th to give a final endorsement.
Okay, so I'll turn it over right now to Jason, and you can update us on the specifics of the project.
Thank you guys for having me here tonight. Chris, can you put up that figure that I did?
You're looking for the map?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
So basically, the project includes new sidewalks on Sawyer Street from the intersection of 3A down to where they end at Fair Oaks. That was originally designed to probably a 25% during the Avalon project. We have those designs in the can and ready to go. And also it will include sidewalks in front of the Stop and Shop property, going down 3A along there. There's a low pressure sewer line. It'll go from Ridgetop Lane, which is where the Tupelo pump station is, and follow that all the way up Route 3A to the intersection of Sawyer Street. We're including a water main replacement. It's a asbestos cement water main. It's not an issue contamination wise as far as asbestos cement is concerned, but that pipe, when it's in a wet area, tends to degrade over time more quickly, and it's a fairly wet area there between Stop and Shop and Pond Street. So where we're in there doing the work, if we can get the money and a grant to replace the pipe, we would like to do that. And also we're including potentially looking at some sort of signalization at the intersection of Sawyer Street and 3A that was recommended originally as part of the Avalon project as well. And the question on that will be, as Chris said, the project needs to be shovel ready for the next construction season. And so we just have to deal with Mass DOT on that and get that permitted. That might be whether we can get that permitted by the time construction needs to start or not is the question. But we are going to attempt to get that done as well. So as Chris said, the MassWorks project has some key points that they try to match, and our project does fit well with them. It's about concentrating mixed use development, and so that one there, they want a minimum of 4 units per acre. We're around 5 units per acre on that. Also, it has to have a mixed use, so that does have a mixed use potential. Protecting the land in the ecosystem, as Chris pointed out, Peppermint Brook runs right behind that site. It's a direct tributary to the Lily Pond water supply. And even though there is on-site treatment currently in the plaza and in that area, some things aren't filtered out through standard on-site septic systems, PFAS being one of them. It will eventually find its way to the water supply. It will not be filtered out in the normal septic system. Even if they went forward with a groundwater discharge permit, which is their alternative option, that would still be putting those PFAS in the ground there. They wouldn't be required to treat for that. It expands the housing is one of the things they want. So it has an affordable housing component to this, and increasing jobs and businesses. So that project will have a commercial retail component, which is what they like to see as well. Another key to the project getting funded is it's advanced in planning and design. They said the Sawyer Street sidewalks are already probably at 30%, and the sewer main has been preliminary designed as well. And we do think we should be able to have construction in place by the next construction season. That's the other key that they look for in the process.
Great, thank you. I'll turn it over to board questions. Carrie?
Yeah, that sounds great, Jason. I just want to make sure that we are following a timeline that will also fit with whatever else, sewer commission, water department, any other sewer regionalization issues are going to happen. I want to make sure this isn't going to conflict with that in terms of times of ripping up streets, times of making improvements. As long as it fits with the possible future things we're doing in the next couple of years, I'm fine with it.
Jason, can you answer that, or Chris?
the
Yep.
water main wasn't necessarily scheduled to be replaced. As we did the talk about the rate study, there's a lot of pipes in town that need to be replaced more. One is Elm Street, so that'll be part of the Elm Street corridor project. But this pipe is due to the location. There's also some issues with the gate valves there. So where you come out of Pond Street at the intersection of Pond and 3A, that's why we extended the project down to there. There's some issues with the gate valves and isolating the system there. So we'll be replacing all that infrastructure at the intersection as well as part of this project. And as far as the sewer is concerned, this is a sewer extension. So it's not really part of the existing sewer system.
And is it correct to say that the extension of the sewer and as shown on this map has already been approved by the sewer commission?
It's been approved conceptually. I mean, they have voted to support it so long as, this series of costs and expenses that have to be met.
Yeah.
So one of them is building the pipe, right? So this would take care of that piece of it. And again, not just for this site, but potentially for other sites as the need arises. From time to time, some of these, there's a packaged sewage treatment plant just behind the site at the Cook Estates, for example. And these things sometimes fail and sometimes, don't work. So for example, if there was a need for Thailand or, any other area, that another pipe could be run. Again, it wouldn't be as of right, it would have to be something that would be approved, we have to have capacity, but it would allow that flexibility for the future, which is the key here. And again, so as you point out, Carrie, this is not something, this doesn't take away anybody's, this is actually supplementing, like the water plant, it doesn't take away any of their, it actually is a future expense. It doesn't, but it wouldn't impact anything currently.
Right, yeah.
And the sidewalks, and the sidewalks are something that I think they've been talked about here, sir, for 20 years, right? I mean, the Avalon, I think, was only built actually 15 years ago. So it's something that we've been talking about for a long time, and the opportunity to be able to put them in, I think, is kind of exciting.
Corey, you had your hand up?
Yeah. I got two quick ones, and then like just yes or no. So I think what Carrie was asking is if we went forward with this, would we have to redig up that sewer line if we wanted to move forward with regional sewer? Like, are we doing the same work twice here? Okay.
No, the plan would be no. This would be designed to be able to accommodate. Should it go forward? If it doesn't go forward, it's no harm, no foul.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then, I'm very sensitive. I mean, Jason, I think you mentioned PFAS. I mean, PFAS is, if people don't know, it's a chemical that is in a lot of, it's in fire retardants and it's a lot of plastics and stuff like that. When it gets into our water supply, it's really hard to filter out. And we're learning kind of every year how damaging it is, especially to people with health compromised health systems, including pregnant women, young children. This is really on our radar. And one thing that somebody mentioned was that behind, or that Stop and Shop Plaza is a tributary to our town reservoir, basically. So we need to protect that. That's, very, very high importance. On the sidewalk thing, my question is, we keep mentioning Avalon, but if you pull that map back up, this doesn't go towards Avalon. And I do see that there's money that we're using from the Avalon gift fund. I'm not quite sure why that wouldn't be used to go towards Avalon. Could you speak to that?
Because the Avalon gift fund, they originally, can I share my screen, Chris? Or I can send you, I cropped out what was done as part of the Avalon project originally.
You can share now, Jason.
Okay, hold on. There was a design that was originally done as part of the Avalon project that was to put sidewalks in on that street. So let me do. Sorry about this.
So there's going to be a crosswalk.
So there's going to be a crosswalk over to Avalon. The problem with doing things on the street to Avalon is, again, permitting with the state. I don't think we could accomplish permitting the portion that went towards Avalon, but we can get down Sawyer Street to where the sidewalk ends on
Fair Oaks.
So we're doing a portion of what was
Yeah, but I'm asking because I mean we're extending it all the way down Stop and Shop. That just seems like wasted cement because no one lives down there. You're probably walking through the parking lot anyway. Where if we went up on the same side as the sidewalk there, we went towards I mean people love Cohasset House of Pizza. There's Vietnamese restaurant. There's a lot of stuff there so go ahead.
The problem is the portion on Stop and Shop would be done on Stop and Shop's property with an easement given to the town in perpetuity for access. If we go down the other direction, we'd have to permit it with the state, and I don't think we can pull that permitting off between now and time of construction.
So if that's the case, I mean, how much of I'm sensitive to kind of using the gift fund, properly here. So, I mean, how much, if we didn't bring the sidewalk all the way around, can we save that for another day when we can go through the permitting process to put the sidewalk in a place where it's going to be useful?
The only money that would be used for the gift fund would be for this portion on Sawyer Street.
Okay.
That was part of the gift fund. We wouldn't be using it for the part in front of. What we would be using that gift fund money for is for designing this portion to shovel readiness, which wouldn't be a significant cost. That then there would be still money to look at the further north part at a later date.
I mean, one thing that I want to just mention to the board, and I've had conversations with Katie about this too, and is that I think we need to have a broader conversation about recognizing where our sidewalk priorities are and not just adding sidewalks randomly. So, if it is the case that we're going to add, the master plan asks town where sidewalks are important, and we need to start talking about, getting those processes started where, if we do need to do permitting, that's not, we know that's coming and we devote resources to that rather than just kind of building sidewalks where we think it's easy. So
so realistically, the north part, the 3A portion would be done more similar to the 3A portion from Beechwood to the town line that's currently in design. So that is done on the state level. They'll do that and they'll permit and they'll do the whole corridor design with their monies, generally speaking.
Okay,
we sometimes will use it as a Kickstarter. So we may go to like 10% design with our money,
right,
and kind of get them thinking of what we'd like to see. And then they'll take it further down when it's in their layout. Because that would basically be, if we're talking about the sidewalks out there, you're looking at on the highway layout, you're looking at a full bike lanes and all that.
Okay. Well,
that kind of infrastructure there.
And on that topic, I mean, I do know we've got the Situate kind of corridor coming up with the state, and I think that they've been talking about that. I mean, is this something where if we get this done, we're going to have kind of two big sets of construction at the same time in town on 3A?
We're scheduled for shovel ready this coming spring on this project.
Yeah.
The other project would be at least a year off, if not two.
Okay.
Can you just be specific about the other project? Are you talking about the
I'm
state
talking about
roads?
I'm talking about the project between Forest Avenue and the Situate Cohasset line, that corridor.
The state.
Correct, the state road.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. Thank you for answering all my questions.
And I'll get to everybody else. One question, Chris, could you just give, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but just repeat how much money we're actually likely to be asking for? And I understand that that's dependent on, what the engineering costs that you're looking to spend, develop, or recommend.
Somewhere between $2 and $3 million.
And would the grant cover 100%, 80%?
I believe, go ahead, Jason.
The goal would be 100%.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jack and Paul, any comments?
Yeah, well, first of all, here we have something coming before us. It has to be done yesterday. I've been trying to follow some of the things, and I think basically one of the undercurrents is we're basically sewering Stop and Shop Plaza. And the question is, are there long-term economic costs to the town to do this? Does the grant cover all of the costs? Are there additional costs down the line that the town will assume? It's just unclear on that. And this is kind of presented kind of the last minute with a deadline and all that. And I know it's been going on for a while. So are there going to be any other costs to the town? Who's going to pay for them? Obviously the sewering Stop and Shop is a major economic, value. The other option is, a full-fledged treatment plant is what they'd have to put in, not just an upgraded septic system. So I just don't know what those additional costs are, and I'd be interested to find out what they are.
So infrastructure is something the town obviously maintains when it's built. The sewer pipes would be part of the town's infrastructure. I think pipes last, Jason, typically they're designed for 30 to 50 years, or is it longer than that? Water mains are 50 plus. Sidewalks is something that has to be maintained. We have them, in a lot of other places in town.
Does the grant cover all of those costs?
No. This is a construction grant, Jack. I'm not aware of any grant that pays for them.
No, I'm not asking about those in the future.
No. In terms of building, no. The goal is to have this. Other than the town, perhaps again, Jason mentioned taking some money out of some funds that already exist to do design work. The goal would be to have this 100% funded this works grant. So the town taxpayers wouldn't have any out-of-pocket expense for any of this. That would be the goal.
To piggyback on Jack's question, and then I see Paul's hand, is adding this sewer pipe, and I know that they've had these discussions at the sewer board and they effectively approved it because it is the most environmentally sensitive thing to do, but does that open up any other connections? And has that been considered in the calculus on the sewer department's watch in terms of capacity?
Jason is free to jump in and correct me. So the short answer is yes. There are a handful of homes between the plaza and the Tupelo Road pumping station that could connect. They're all small residential properties. They're not commercial structures, and they'd have the right to connect, but they wouldn't have the obligation or duty to connect. I don't believe that I mean, almost on a de minimis addition, but they would fit in. And again, the sewer commission took that into account when they gave the preliminary approval for a connection, because this is the only difference with this and what the sewer commission was looking at is this would just be a little bit longer, a little bit bigger. It wouldn't automatically add any other properties. So it would be the same potential increase in flow as was already accommodated by the sewer commission.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
So two quick things. One is protecting the water supply coming out of Peppermint Brook, which is key because that is probably one of the few places which would impact the entire town. So I think that's a reasonable, at least assess what could potentially be done there. The other is on the north part, the Complete Streets Massachusetts design for adapting new roadways and new design would incorporate sidewalks on either side or potentially on one side from the northern portion north of Sawyer Street. So that's the other, which we see on the south end of town. The Complete Streets is the Commonwealth's idea to build out bike lanes, sidewalk, and access for sidewalks as well as street lights, not street stop lights and things like that. I'm done.
Thank you, Paul. Carrie?
Yep, we just had a comment from Katie Dugan saying that there's a memo that Lauren Lind wrote on, I think, November 2019, possibly, I think 11/11/2019, which details out the planning impact of the private sewer line being put into the Tupelo Road pumping station to the Stop and Shop Plaza.
Great, thank you. So at this point, I know Chris is looking for sort of an affirmative go forth with the expenses for engineering to get us to a point where we have an engineered grant application to the state. And then I mean, I certainly think we should take every opportunity we can to advance some of these important priorities, whether it's economic development, sidewalks, you know, environmental health, and most importantly, in this case, affordable housing. So I would like to, you know, see if the board's comfortable with giving a vote of support with the caveat that the grant is due, my understanding is on August 28th or 27th. We meet on the 25th. If we have to affirm, you know, or send a letter of support in, obviously that should be something that we have with the specifics of the grant application in our packets the Friday prior, and then we will vote to sign or not sign, hopefully not, that endorsement letter on the 25th. Is that a doable schedule?
Yes. I mean, I'm gonna, unless the board says no tonight and says stop, then we'd go ahead, we'd take the $400, we'd retain the engineering consultant, we'd get the grant proposed, and then we'd have a final version to circulate to you with a draft letter of support for the 25th. And then we could file it either the 26th, if you vote yes, the 26th, 27th, no later than the 28th.
Okay.
And then during the next couple of weeks, we'd also work with our legislative delegation to get their support, and other boards and committees as well. And then again, we wouldn't file anything until after the 25th. So if for whatever reason between now and then the board was like, well, no, stop, or something else happened, obviously we can still stop. And you know, the work is not this. In a worst case scenario, we'd have design plans for things we want to get done anyway, like the sidewalks and stuff, right? We really want to get those things done. So and the water have to be done too at some point, even if it's not done right away. So it wouldn't be wasted money. It would be kind of advance pay money. So which is not a bad thing. And it's a fairly low cost item, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jack.
Okay. I have a couple of concerns. You know, I'm conceptually somewhat in favor. I have a concern. I haven't had a chance to really look at it, and I have been contacted by various people around town who have some very vehement objections. I don't know if they've been met. I'd like to check with that. The other concern is, just so everybody knows, throwing the affordable housing is, the affordable housing was agreed upon by the Stop and Shop developer like 2 years ago. So this isn't like we have to do this to get the affordable housing. He's already agreed to that. So let's just take that off the table. I don't think that's a holding affordable housing over to push this. If this should go in its merits, we will get the affordable housing on that no matter what. But that's my only concern. I'd like to find out exactly if there's some things, and I really haven't had a good chance to take a look at this and fully understand it. I do recognize, well, I'm a little concerned. This has obviously been in planning for a while. We haven't seen it. That's a concern. But on the other hand, you know, moving forward on a project like this has some important benefits for the town. So I'm betwixt and between here.
And I think that we, you know, if we take just a vote of support for proceeding toward a grant application, I'm comfortable that, you know, we'll have you know, that kind of ripcord at the end to support or not support the ultimate work. And I would also just like to, and I know Jason works very well, and on behalf of the town, you know, just obviously making sure that water commissioners and sewer commissioners, and I know the sewer commission did, you know, knew you kind of discuss this theoretically with them as well. So, you know, just taking all the stakeholders so that there's no surprises as much as you possibly can over the next 3 weeks while you prepare this grant. If that's okay with everybody and somebody would like to make a motion to proceed with this course.
I make a motion, we give the selectmen's approval of pursuing this engineering option for the town.
Second.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. beginning with Jack.
Jack Creighton votes aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Great, thank you very much.
So we'll get the grant
Good luck.
application put together and we'll return it all to you for the 25th for another look, okay?
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, I'm behind. I said I was going to keep us on schedule, but I honestly thank you all so much. This has really been a very meaty, and we've accomplished a lot tonight. So the next item we have on the agenda is basically an update on committee openings, which is in our packet. There was the press release that was issued by the town per our instruction a few weeks ago. You know, I will say it again, and we're going to be, you know, this is out on through the media and on social media. I know I've put it on my Facebook page. I'm just going to read through the committee openings just so that they're out there. And we're still taking applications both for board appointments, which we will do, assuming we have a critical mass of applicants at the meeting at the end of the month. And there's also three committees appointed by the Troika, which is the moderator, chair of the select board, myself, and the chair of the advisory committee. So those positions, there are 3 advisory committee positions open. Those are critical appointments to our finance committee. The capital budget committee also has 3 open positions for 3-year terms. Is that right? And the design review board has a full member position and a 2 associate member positions. The design review board reviews large homes, et cetera, per, you know, when called upon by the planning board. Board openings from select board appointments, the Alternative Energy Committee, Cable Advisory Committee, Cohasset Common Historic District, the Cohasset Cultural Council, Cohasset Harbor Committee, Community Preservation Committee, Conservation Committee, Fence Viewers, Historical Commission, Open Space and Rec Committee, South Shore Regional School District Representative, South Shore Recycling Cooperative Committee, the Town Hall Building Committee, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. They all have openings. We have applications already for some of those. Some of them are seeking reappointment. Many of those are open positions for anybody interested in getting involved in the government. We encourage you to do so. Corey, we'll get to him in a second. But you know, we're going to do everything we can to get the word out as much as we can over the next couple of weeks, and really try to have a robust, some new faces and voices, and then also, you know, rely on some of our tried and true experienced people. So we encourage everybody, if you haven't sent in an application, or if you have any questions about committee service or what a particular committee does, please reach out to any one of us, or more importantly, members of those committees as well. Carrie.
Do we have a document that exists somewhere that gives a brief few sentence description of each of these committees and what they do? A lot of people have been asking about, you know, what does this one do? What does this one do? And it would be really nice if we had an easy to post thing for social media, kind of giving just a very brief description of each committee, so they don't have to spend hours trying to find them all in our website that, as we know, is not always easy to navigate.
I'm looking at Tracy. Do we have that? I'm not sure that we do, which is, we probably should.
Well, you know,
I mean, they're
they're
all there somewhere, right?
We have a committee handbook that was done a number of years ago. It may need to be updated, but
And that's actually some project we can take, looking at Corey and Carrie, because you're on either side of the top of the screen, my screen. We did do the committee handbook, and I went through it the other day thinking that I might find like a short little, the advisory committee advises town meeting and the board of selectmen on blah, blah, blah. And it's not in that. They're in very different places. Paul?
I think some of it is in the town report, and you may find some of the information there, but it's not in a, you know, there's not a single sheet that is easy to access.
Yeah. Yeah, and we need to do that.
We need something easily postable for social media, and that, you know, is a quick glance people can look at and say, oh, maybe I'd fit in on that committee, you know, just like almost like a teaser, an attention getter type.
You know, one of the, I mean, right now, and you know, we can, let's, well, Carrie, why don't you and I talk about, you know, trying to get something put together on that. Right now, we do have a list, and it is available, and we'll see if we can get it right on the homepage, of the different committees that exist and have openings. And maybe, you know, before we get everything fully delineated, maybe the thing to tell people to do is go look at, if you're like Cohasset Cultural Council, what does that do? You know, then you can just search for it on the website and you will get a description. I understand how cumbersome that is, and it's not so easy for social, but Corey?
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, you know, Carrie's you brought the social, and obviously my, you know, where my brain is at is video and TV station. So, I mean, that, you know, I would love to work with you guys as well, maybe work with the different chairs of the different committees and have them give their little description. That'd be something that would you know, help that a lot.
And I do think it would be helpful, by the way, just to point people at the committee handbook. That took a lot of work went into producing that, and you know, it is 21 pages. You don't have to read every single one of them, but it really explains what committees are about, how they structure, you know, and because it's not just, hey, I think conservation is cool. You know, there's a lot of work to be on a conservation commission.
Right.
So I do think it would be helpful if people are interested just in general to understand what a committee is all about and what the different things are. So that's on the website already. It's been up there. It's in the town clerk section, and we can obviously extract it, or we can send you a PDF copy of it. But I understand what you're looking for, so we can obviously.
Yeah, and you know, I think, Chris, I'll reach out to Carol too, because when we did the committee handbook, which was probably in like 2014, there was a spreadsheet that we had all the committees on it, and we had some short descriptions. I don't know that turned into anything, and that was a long time ago. So we can see if there's some skeleton.
There is an appendix list of all the committees and how many members they have and all of that, at least the ones that existed 4 years ago.
But no description.
No.
Okay. All right. Jack, you have your hand up?
Yeah. No, never mind. I thought better of my comment.
Thank you. All right. So let's go. So just to, we amended the agenda just because of us, you know, setting up some time to do videos that that Cohasset 143 TV was going to do. And truly, we actually, because we have a committee opening and appointments discussion on here, we probably could address the video here, but because it's listed under 48 hours, I'm going to hold off on that and move now into the town manager update, and then we'll get to the kind of PR campaign through Cohasset 143 TV at the end of the agenda. So Chris?
I think we've covered a lot. I took my thunder on the grant that I was going to announce, the police one. We have a number of other applications that are pending for similar type COVID-related grants. You know, I think there's been a lot covered today in the last 3 straight weeks of meetings. So that's the extent of my update. Is thank you, everybody, all the committees and everyone that's working so hard to move us forward during this somewhat challenging time. Some are obviously a lot more active this year than we historically have been, and I appreciate everyone's energy and commitment during this time to keep us moving forward in a good direction.
Great, thank you. I'll move to select board comments. Sorry, I'm going to get it at some point. Jack?
Oh, well, actually, this is part of that. You know, Chris, for a long period of time, there's been requests made to release the names of all the attorneys that have been used by the town. This was done when Kevin McCarthy was chair. This was done, I've sent several requests. I sent you a letter dated last Thursday. Hi, Chris, I wish to request a complete list of all attorneys providing service to the town as well as documentation of their respective appointments. This will include actual tape for the appointments as well as written minutes. Written minutes do not supplant actual tapes. Documentation should also include full payment records, including invoices. Prompt his attention. I sent this Thursday. I got no response. I sent it again yesterday. I've sent these things before. Is there a reason why you don't feel that you need to respond to questions? These are basic oversight functions of a Board of Select member, and we're looking at some conduct. And it is worth pointing out that the appointment ability of town council is specifically to the Board of Selectmen. This has also been read into the record. And I just want to know, Chris, is there a time when I might expect an answer? Or if you will like, I can file a Freedom of Information request and get this, but I don't think that's how we need to run this town. So Chris, just tell
Jack,
me
you
when I'll
made your
get that
point.
information.
Let Chris
I
answer.
know. Let me
Thank you.
So, Selectman Creighton, I apologize for the delay in putting this stuff together. It's turned out it's not as easy as I wished it was. Tracy and I have been working on this for a couple of, well, actually more than a couple of weeks, but obviously in conjunction with the whole issue of clarifying who's retained for what and moving forward in a much clearer way, because we clearly have to do that. So we've pulled together some preliminary stuff, and we're still looking. I'm still trying to pull a couple of things together. And in terms of bills, I mean, there's actually lots and lots. I mean, if the board wants every bill from every firm, I'm happy to provide them. What I'm trying to do is pull together a summary showing the work that's been done just over this last fiscal year, and then and also explain what council does what work. So there's a little bit more context. So it has not gone as quickly as I would have liked. So it's something that we're most certainly continuing to work on, and I hope to have something preliminarily shortly. So that's where I'm going.
Just just on that, to wrap it up, because we have been discussing it for a while. I envision a spreadsheet so that we all, as we start talking about council and special counsel and everything, that we understand where the representations are and when they, what their contract status is, or whatever arrangement we have with them. So if we could, make that a priority, and if it's at all possible to get it to us well in advance of our next meeting, which isn't until the end of the month, I would appreciate that.
Duly noted again, I most certainly apologize for the length of time it's taken to pull some of this together. And some of it's been a little more difficult to find.
I understand.
So,
Jack,
it's being worked on.
Okay, Jack, if you have another selectman comment.
No, that's, and I kind of regret having to bring it up repeatedly, but it needs to be resolved.
Thank you. Corey?
Yeah, I think having a legal review is something I need to have, being new. So hopefully hopefully we can get that done, either this month or certainly the end of next month, and maybe we put it on an agenda or something. But my comments today are about the census. It is apparently, I've heard that maybe we have some census people in town. The census is it's an amazing thing, and that is one of the first things that's mentioned in the Constitution. It is our constitutional right to be counted and to be represented at every level of government. And I encourage all of us here in Cohasset to respond accurately to the census. That way we get the representation that we deserve and that we're constitutionally entitled to at all the levels of government. So please take it seriously. Please respond. If you do have somebody there, it really is vital to the health of our town. Thank you.
I have a quick question on that. Thank you, Corey, for bringing that up. I was under the impression the deadline was a long time ago. Am I wrong? Does anybody know what the deadline is to respond to the census?
So the deadline for the written response has pretty much passed.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But they will do a walkthrough as a follow-up to be certain no one else is missed. They'll also do a calling. So you may get a call that says U.S. Census, and they will ask additional questions to be certain nothing has changed since the sending in of the paper instructions in the paper census.
Got it. Thank you very much. Paul, I'll go to you for a comment.
I think that the one thing that is starting to be concerning is the number of COVID cases increasing in the state. So please just be very cautious, careful, meticulous, wear a mask. That's about the only defense we have. Clearly, there have been a couple of increasing cases in South Shore Hospital. Locally, Cohasset has done well. We need to keep it up. In the area around here, there's been some outbreaks in locations such as down in Chatham, down in Falmouth, and that's what we'll expect to see, and we need to try to contain that. And the other thing is they're finishing up the gas mains along Sawyer Street, so just be very careful going down Sawyer Street again. That's it.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, friendly reminder to register to vote. I believe the voter registration deadline for the September 1st primary is, let's see, August 22nd. So if you aren't registered yet, if you have a change of address, get that in. Also, to request a early ballot, you have until August 26th.
Thank you. Just one thing I want to put out there, only because I've had a lot of comments about this, is to put back on our agenda, upcoming agenda in the fall, Chris, another discussion about permits, the all facilities stickers, and just some of the gray areas. We did a really good job, I think, kind of late in the game last March or February, when we had thought we might take the fall to do a more comprehensive look at fees and permits and beach and dump stickers. But there have been some issues with residents and part year residents and renters and the way that's rolling out. And I think it would behoove all of us to have just a general larger conversation about all of that sometime early in the fall. So I have it on my list of things to do, but I just wanted to, because I'm hearing a lot about it. I'm sure all of you are as well. You know, homeowners who don't live in town full year, and there's just a lot of gray area that I think we need to iron out next year so that's clear for everybody. That's it for me. I do have a topic not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. We had generally talked about pushing out as much as we could on social media and through the TV station a committee recruitment information, or just the plea for committee people. And Corey, I know, has come up with a great idea for a Cohasset 143 TV spot that I'll turn it over for him to describe. And we wanted to make sure we discussed it in public because we got a little ahead of ourselves in discussing it before we really had an opportunity to do so in public. So.
Yeah, totally. So as part of our mission to really encourage town to join boards, what I would like to do is make a joint video with all of us on the select board and potentially Mr. Senior, a short video that would be shared not only on 143 TV, but also on our different social media accounts, really get this out there. I'm thinking a pretty short 30-second spot. Over the weekend, I sent everybody like a draft piece of what the copy may look like. And so today, I'd like to get this done sooner rather than later because we want to appoint people. I don't want to wait to the next meeting. I'd like to have a quick vote not vote or sign, whatever we need to show confidence that this is something that the board wants to move forward on, and that I can, use the resources or assist getting done and getting published. So that's kind of what I'm looking for from you all.
Okay, I think I think I would like to just recommend that we do a vote, that we, assign Corey the producer role, producer and scriptwriter role, and that we all participate as we can so that he can get this done as soon as possible. And
do you want me to share the copy of the proposed text?
Yeah, if you would read it, that
sure.
would be fabulous.
Yeah, why not? So
Yep.
So it's very, very, very clean. And the potential language is, hello, I am Cohasset Select Board member. Name. Our town relies on residents just like you to participate in the decision-making process. We want and need every citizen of Cohasset to participate in our local government. Your voice matters, and we want to add your voice to our community. make your voice heard by applying for committee or board appointment. Cohasset needs you. That would be my recommended language, and that we all record, and then I can, what I would do is stitch those words together so that we would all kind of speak in one voice. And if that's
great.
Approved by you all, I'd love to go forward with that.
Could I have the communications professor make a motion?
Yes, and do we have a deadline preference for when you want this submitted, Corey? Maybe next 24 hours, 48 hours?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, 48 hours would be wonderful, to be honest.
Okay.
Okay.
I move that we allow Corey to be our producer for this video about getting involved in town, and that all of us individually submit our videos to Corey within the next 48 hours to get cut.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, starting with Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye.
And if anybody has any technological challenges, just feel free to reach out to Corey, our
Please.
producer.
Please. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
I'm happy to take part, Corey, if you want. You can include me or not. So just send me that little script and I'll record it for you and send it.
Will do. All right. Thank you very much,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. This was a very meaty meeting where we accomplished a lot, and I really appreciate everything. And give some to consideration to those master plan implementation priorities that you feel you're best suited or most interested in, and we'll have that discussion on the 25th as we look at the other slate of candidates. And with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye.
Thank you very much.
Take
We are adjourned.
All right. See y'all later.
Good night.